Feeling stuck? Searching for direction? In today's video, let's discover the ancient wisdom of Stoicism with these 55 life-changing rules that will guide you to clarity, purpose, and inner peace. Stick around till the end because each rule builds on the next, creating a powerful blueprint for transforming your life. Let's dive in. Number 1. Learn from mistakes. Mistakes. They're inevitable, right? No matter how much we plan, prepare, or predict, there's always that curveball life throws at us. But here's the thing, mistakes aren't just these annoying roadblocks. They're hidden opportunities, like a door you didn't know existed until you tripped over it. Stoicism teaches us that mistakes aren't just to be brushed off or forgotten, they're to be studied, dissected, and turned into stepping stones on the path to greater intelligence. Think about it. Every time you mess up, there's a wealth of knowledge just waiting to be tapped into. But, and here's the catch, you've got to be willing to dive into that uncomfortable space where the mistake happened. It's not about wallowing in regret or beating yourself up. No, it's more about being curious, really curious. What led to that mistake? What were the thought processes, the emotions, the assumptions that got you there? This isn't about self-blame, it's about self-awareness. In the hustle and bustle of daily life, it's easy to gloss over errors, to move on without a second thought. But doing so is like leaving treasure buried. You're passing up on nuggets of wisdom that could be yours. The Stoics believe that wisdom comes not from avoiding mistakes but from embracing them, learning from them, and growing because of them. It's like each mistake is a puzzle, and your job is to figure out how the pieces fit together in the grand scheme of your life. Now, here's where it gets interesting. When you start actively learning from your mistakes, something changes. You begin to notice patterns. You start to see where your thinking might be a bit off, where your judgment might need a little refining. And this, my friend, is how you sharpen your mind. It's how you become more intelligent, not in some bookish, trivia knowledge way, but in a deeply practical, life-savvy way. Imagine your mind as a sword. Every mistake is like a forge where you can hammer out the dents, sharpen the edge, and polish it to a shine. But if you ignore the forge, that sword stays dull, rusty even. The Stoics didn't shy away from their mistakes, they faced them head-on. They saw each one as an opportunity to refine their character, to sharpen their intellect, to grow stronger and wiser. And here's the beauty of it all, the more you learn from your mistakes, the less afraid you are of making them. That fear of failure? It starts to lose its grip on you. Because you know, deep down, that each stumble is just another chance to get back up, smarter and more resilient than before. So, next time you trip up, don't just brush it off. Pause. Reflect. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? It might feel uncomfortable, even a bit painful, but that's where the growth happens. That's where intelligence is forged, in the heat of mistakes, in the willingness to learn and adapt. In the end, learning from mistakes isn't just about avoiding the same slip-up in the future. It's about transforming those errors into wisdom, using them as tools to carve out a sharper, more insightful version of yourself. So embrace your mistakes, learn from them, and watch as your mind sharpens, your understanding deepens, and your intelligence soars. Number 2, limit mental overload. Alright, let's dive into how limiting mental overload can really boost your intelligence. It's like this, your mind is a powerhouse, but even the strongest engines need time to cool down, right? When you cram it with too much stuff, information, tasks, worries, it starts to overheat. And just like a car that's been running too long without a break, your brain's performance can seriously tank if it's constantly overloaded. Think about it, when you're juggling too many things, how often do you drop the ball? The more you pile on, the harder it becomes to focus, to think clearly. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack while someone's dumping more hay on top of you. Not exactly ideal conditions for deep, meaningful thought, is it? The Stoics, with their love for simplicity and focus, were onto something here. They understood that the mind needs space to breathe, to stretch its legs, so to speak. When you limit mental overload, you're not just clearing the clutter, you're giving your mind the room it needs to do what it does best: think, analyze, and grow. Now, how do you actually limit this overload? It's not about cutting out everything or living in a bubble. No, it's about being selective. Just as you wouldn't fill your plate with food you don't like, why fill your mind with unnecessary thoughts? The Stoics would advise focusing on what's essential, on what serves your growth and understanding. It's about quality over quantity, choosing to engage deeply with fewer things rather than skimming the surface of many. When you do this, something remarkable happens. Your thoughts become clearer, sharper. You start making connections you hadn't noticed before, seeing patterns and insights that were hidden in the chaos. It's like when the fog lifts and suddenly you can see for miles. That's the power of a mind that isn't bogged down by overload. And here's the kicker: by limiting mental overload, you're not just enhancing your intelligence, you're also protecting it. Over time, constantly straining your mind can lead to burnout, making it harder to learn and adapt. But when you give your brain the space it needs, you're preserving its vitality, keeping it sharp and ready for whatever challenges come your way. So, let's circle back to the idea of intelligence. It's not just about cramming more knowledge into your head. True intelligence, the kind the Stoics would admire, is about understanding. It's about being able to see the bigger picture, to discern what matters from what doesn't. And you can't do that if your mind is constantly overloaded with noise. In the end, limiting mental overload is about respecting your mind's capacity. It's about recognizing that less really can be more. By giving your thoughts the room they need to breathe, you're not just making your mind more efficient, you're making it more powerful. And that, my friend, is a Stoic secret worth embracing. Number 3. Detach from external validation. Imagine living in a world where the opinions of others have little to no impact on your sense of self. That's the sweet spot Stoicism wants you to hit. It's like building a fortress around your mind, where the bricks are made of your values, principles, and self-worth. The external noise, those opinions, judgments, or praises, might echo, but they don't shake the foundation. This is the essence of detaching from external validation, and it's a game changer when it comes to sharpening your intelligence. Why? Because when you're not shackled by the need for approval, your mind becomes freer, lighter, more agile. You're not constantly second-guessing your thoughts or actions based on what others might think. Instead, you focus on what truly matters: your inner growth, your understanding of the world, and the clarity of your own judgment. And this is where intelligence starts to bloom. When you step back from seeking validation, you begin to think more independently. Your thoughts are no longer crowded by the pressure to conform to someone else's standards. This detachment allows you to explore new ideas, question existing ones, and develop your reasoning without the fear of being judged. It's like unlocking a new level of intellectual freedom, where creativity and critical thinking thrive because they aren't tethered to external approval. But let's not pretend this is easy. Our brains are wired to crave acceptance. We're social creatures, after all. Yet, by practicing detachment, you slowly rewire those circuits. You start placing more value on your own assessment of things, rather than the applause or disapproval from the outside world. Over time, this builds a kind of mental resilience. You become less reactive, more reflective, and in that space of reflection, intelligence grows. Detaching from external validation also means you're less likely to be swayed by trends, popular opinions, or the latest must-know information. You become more selective with what you let into your mental space. This selectivity enhances your ability to discern what's valuable from what's just noise. Intelligence, after all, isn't just about gathering information, it's about knowing what to keep and what to discard. It's about understanding that not all voices deserve your attention and that some of the most profound insights come from within. As you continue to detach, something fascinating happens. You start to experience a deeper sense of self-awareness. You understand your strengths, your weaknesses, and, most importantly, your motives. When you're not driven by the need for external validation, you're more honest with yourself. This honesty leads to better decisions, sharper problem-solving skills, and a more profound understanding of the world around you. It's intelligence in its purest form, untainted by the need to impress, unaffected by the fear of judgment. In the end, detaching from external validation isn't about shutting yourself off from the world. It's about creating a buffer between your mind and the noise. It's about choosing whose opinions truly matter. Hint, yours should be at the top of that list, and understanding that intelligence thrives in a mind that isn't constantly seeking approval. So, build that mental fortress. Let your thoughts be your guide. And watch as your intelligence reaches new heights, unburdened by the weight of external validation. Number 4, focus on present moment awareness. Let's talk about the present moment. It's this slippery thing, isn't it? Always happening, yet so easy to miss. We spend so much time bouncing between the past and the future, worrying, reminiscing, planning anything but actually being where we are right now. And yet, Stoicism, with all its ancient wisdom, nudges us to settle into the present, to really focus on it, because that's where life actually unfolds. That's where intelligence really sharpens. Here's the deal: when you're fully present, your mind is clear, your thoughts are crisp, and your perception sharpens. You're not clouded by the regrets of yesterday or the anxieties of tomorrow. You're just here, in the moment, fully engaged with what's happening. And that's powerful. It's like wiping the fog off a window. You can finally see clearly. Why is this so important for intelligence? Well, think about it. When you're focused on the present, you're tuned into what's real, what's actually happening, not just what you think might happen or wish had happened. This level of awareness allows you to make smarter decisions, respond more thoughtfully, and notice details that others might overlook. It's about being so in tune with the moment that your mind operates at its full potential, free from the distractions that usually hold it back. But let's be real. Staying in the present isn't easy. Our minds love to wander. They drag us back to that embarrassing thing we said last week or fling us forward to that meeting we're dreading tomorrow. The trick is to catch yourself when you start drifting. Notice it. And gently guide yourself back to the now. It's not about force, it's about awareness. You're training your mind to stay where your body is, to synchronize your thoughts with your reality. And guess what? The more you practice this, the better you get at it. It's like any skill. At first, it might feel awkward, like you're constantly pulling your mind back from wandering. But over time, it becomes second nature. You start to live more in the now, and your mind becomes sharper, more attuned to the nuances of life. Another thing that happens when you're fully present? You become more aware of your thoughts. You start to notice the patterns, the repetitive worries, the unnecessary clutter. And with that awareness comes the ability to change them. To think more clearly, more rationally. That's another boost to your intelligence right there. So, what's the takeaway? Focusing on the present moment isn't just some feel-good advice, it's a practical, powerful tool for increasing your intelligence. It's about clearing away the mental fog, tuning into reality, and using your mind to its fullest potential. The more you practice it, the more it becomes a part of who you are, and the more you'll find yourself making smarter, more thoughtful decisions. In the end, present moment awareness isn't just about being mindful. It's about reclaiming your attention, sharpening your thoughts, and living in a way that's fully engaged with the world around you. And that, my friend, is a major key to unlocking deeper intelligence. Number 5. Engage in deep reading. Let's dive into this idea of deep reading. Sounds a bit intense, doesn't it? But don't let the term scare you off. Deep reading isn't about skimming through pages or just getting the gist of things. It's about sinking into the words, letting them marinate in your mind, and really absorbing the layers of meaning. It's like having a conversation with the author, one where you're not just listening but engaging, questioning, reflecting. And that's where the magic happens, where intelligence starts to sharpen and expand. When you engage in deep reading, you're not just flipping through the pages to get to the end. You're pausing, rereading, and letting ideas simmer. You might even find yourself arguing with the author in your head, challenging their points, or finding connections to other things you've read. This kind of reading isn't passive, it's active, almost like a workout for your brain. And just like any good workout, it stretches your mental muscles, making you stronger, more flexible in your thinking. Here's the thing, in our fast-paced world, it's easy to fall into the trap of surface reading. You know, just skimming through articles, scrolling through endless feeds, grabbing bits of information here and there. But deep reading? It's like the slow food movement for your mind. It's about savoring the text, letting it nourish your thoughts, and giving yourself the space to really digest what you're taking in. And why does this matter for intelligence? Well, deep reading forces you to slow down and think. It's not just about consuming information, it's about processing it, making connections, and even coming up with new ideas of your own. It's the difference between just knowing something and truly understanding it. When you engage with a text on this level, you're not just filling your mind with facts, you're shaping the way you think, enhancing your ability to analyze, to empathize, to see things from multiple perspectives. Another cool thing about deep reading is that it trains your attention. In a world full of distractions, the ability to focus deeply is a superpower. When you're fully immersed in a book, everything else fades away. You're in the zone, your mind honed in on the words, the ideas, the story. This kind of focus doesn't just make you a better reader, it makes you a better thinker. You start to notice details, patterns, subtleties that others might miss. And that kind of sharpness? That's pure intelligence. So, if you want to boost your intelligence, carve out some time for deep reading. Find a quiet spot, pick up a book that challenges you, and dive in. Let yourself get lost in the words, but also engage with them. Question, reflect, and most importantly, enjoy the process. Because deep reading isn't just about learning more, it's about thinking better, deeper, and more clearly. In the end, engaging in deep reading isn't just a habit, it's a mindset. It's about valuing the quality of your thoughts over the quantity of information you consume. And when you do that, when you truly commit to diving deep into what you read, you'll find your intelligence naturally growing, your mind expanding in ways you didn't even know were possible. So go ahead, lose yourself in a good book, and watch how it sharpens your mind, page by page. Number 6. Exercise disciplined thinking. Let's dig into this idea of disciplined thinking. It's one of those phrases that might sound a bit stiff at first, like something a stern teacher might drill into you. But don't let that fool you. Disciplined thinking is less about rigid rules and more about clarity, focus, and a bit of mental toughness. It's like giving your mind a workout, strengthening it so that it cuts through the noise and hones in on what really matters. First off, what does it mean to think with discipline? It's about being intentional with your thoughts, not just letting them run wild or spiral out of control. Imagine your mind as a garden. Without discipline, weeds, those chaotic, random, unproductive thoughts, start to take over. Disciplined thinking is like weeding out the unnecessary, trimming back the overgrowth, and nurturing the thoughts that actually lead somewhere meaningful. It's about deciding where to focus your mental energy and sticking to that. Now, you might be wondering, why is this so crucial for intelligence? Well, Disciplined thinking helps you process information more effectively. Instead of getting overwhelmed by the sheer amount of stuff coming at you from all directions, you're able to sift through it, zero in on what's important, and discard the rest. It's like having a filter in place that only lets through the gold. And that's not just about being smart, it's about being wise. It's about knowing what to focus on and what to let go of. But here's the catch: disciplined thinking doesn't come naturally. It's something you have to cultivate, like a skill. And that means practice. It starts with awareness, catching yourself when your thoughts start to drift into unproductive territory. When you notice your mind wandering, you pull it back. Gently, but firmly. It's like training a puppy. At first, it might be all over the place, but with consistency, it starts to stay on track. The more you practice this, the sharper your mind becomes, and the more disciplined your thinking gets. And let's not forget about the power of questioning. Disciplined thinking isn't just about staying focused, it's also about digging deeper. It's about challenging your own thoughts, asking yourself why you think a certain way, and not just accepting things at face value. It's easy to get stuck in mental ruts, thinking the same things over and over. But disciplined thinking is about breaking out of those ruts, exploring new perspectives, and pushing the boundaries of your understanding. So, what's the result of all this mental discipline? A mind that's not just smart, but sharp. A mind that doesn't just take in information, but processes it, questions it, and turns it into something useful. It's the kind of intelligence that's both deep and wide, capable of seeing the big picture without losing sight of the details. In the end, exercising disciplined thinking is about taking control of your mental landscape. It's about being the gardener of your own mind, cultivating the thoughts that lead to growth, and pruning away the ones that don't. It's not always easy, just like any good workout, it can be challenging. But the rewards? They're worth every bit of effort. So, start today. Start paying attention to your thoughts, start guiding them with intention, and watch as your intelligence begins to flourish, more focused, more powerful, and more disciplined than ever before. Number 7, value silence and solitude. Let's talk about silence and solitude. In today's world, those two words might seem a little, well, out of place. We're surrounded by constant noise, endless chatter, and the ever-present hum of activity. It's like we've been conditioned to think that if we're not talking, if we're not surrounded by people, something's wrong. But here's where Stoicism flips the script: silence and solitude aren't just okay, they're essential. Why? Because in the quiet, that's where you find clarity. When you strip away the noise, the distractions, the endless stream of input, you're left with your thoughts, raw and unfiltered. It might feel a bit unsettling at first, like standing alone on a vast plain with nothing but the wind. But that's where the real work begins. In the silence, you can finally hear yourself think. You can sift through your thoughts, examine them, challenge them, and really get to know what's going on in that busy mind of yours. Silence isn't just about the absence of sound. It's about creating space, mental space, where your thoughts can stretch out, breathe, and grow. It's in this space that you can dig deep, reflect, and connect the dots that might have been buried under all the noise. And that's where intelligence starts to sharpen. It's like polishing a gem. The more you sit with your thoughts in silence, the clearer, more refined, more insightful they become. And solitude? It's the companion to silence. It's not about loneliness or isolation, it's about being alone with your thoughts, in your own company. In solitude, you're free from external influences, from the need to conform, perform, or explain yourself. You can just be. And in that being, you can explore your mind, your ideas, your beliefs. It's a kind of mental freedom that's hard to come by in the hustle and bustle of everyday life. When you value silence and solitude, you're giving yourself permission to step back from the chaos and just exist in your own mental space. It's like hitting the reset button on your mind, allowing it to clear out the clutter and make room for new, more profound thoughts to take root. This isn't about escaping the world, it's about preparing yourself to engage with it more intelligently. Here's the thing, in silence and solitude, you're not running away from life. You're stepping into a deeper part of it. You're diving into the inner workings of your mind, exploring the terrain, and coming back with a richer understanding of yourself and the world around you. It's like going on a mental retreat, where you emerge more focused, more thoughtful, and yes, more intelligent. So, don't be afraid to seek out silence and solitude. Embrace them. Make them a part of your routine, like brushing your teeth or drinking your morning coffee. Use that time to think, reflect, and just be with yourself. You might be surprised at the clarity, the insights, the wisdom that start to emerge. Because in those quiet moments, away from the noise and the crowd, you're giving your mind the space it needs to truly thrive. And that, my friend, is where intelligence finds its deepest roots. Number 8. Pursue virtuous conversations. Let's talk about the power of conversation, real, meaningful conversation, the kind that isn't just about passing the time but actually sharpens your mind and elevates your thinking. The Stoics knew the value of words, not just as a means to communicate, but as a tool to refine your intellect and build your character. So, what does it mean to pursue virtuous conversations, and how does it ramp up your intelligence? First off, let's clear the air. Not all conversations are created equal. You've got your small talk, your chit-chat, okay for passing time, but not exactly brain food, right? Then you've got the deeper stuff, the kind of dialogue that challenges you, that makes you think twice, that maybe even leaves you with more questions than answers. That's where the magic happens. That's where you grow. So, what makes a conversation virtuous? Well, it's about intent. It's about choosing to engage in discussions that push the envelope on your understanding, that aren't just about swapping opinions but are rooted in a genuine desire to seek truth, to explore ideas, to better yourself and others. Virtuous conversations are like a workout for your mind, except instead of lifting weights, you're lifting your own intellectual and moral capacity. Now, why does this matter for your intelligence? Simple. When you engage in these kinds of conversations, you're not just spouting off what you already know. You're stretching your thinking, examining your assumptions, and refining your beliefs. It's like polishing a gem. The more you work at it, the clearer and more brilliant it becomes. But here's the thing, to really benefit from virtuous conversations, you've got to be all in. It's not just about talking, it's about listening, too. And I mean really listening, not just waiting for your turn to speak. When you truly listen, you're opening yourself up to new perspectives, to ideas that might just turn your understanding on its head. And that's a good thing. Because intelligence isn't about always being right, it's about being open to the possibility that there's more to learn, that there's another angle you haven't considered. And let's not forget the role of humility in all this. The Stoics were big on humility, and for good reason. It takes humility to admit that you don't know everything, to be willing to learn from others, even when their ideas challenge your own. Virtuous conversations aren't about winning an argument, they're about finding common ground, about mutual growth. And when you approach conversations with that mindset, you're not just increasing your knowledge, you're deepening your understanding, honing your wisdom. So, to wrap it up, pursuing virtuous conversations isn't just a nice idea, it's a practical strategy for increasing your intelligence. It's about surrounding yourself with people who challenge you, who inspire you to think more deeply, to question more thoroughly, to grow continuously. It's about choosing substance over superficiality, depth over shallowness. And when you make this a habit, you'll find that your mind becomes sharper, your thoughts clearer, and your understanding richer. That's the kind of intelligence the Stoics would applaud, a mind that's ever seeking, ever learning, ever improving. Number 9. Analyze your judgments. Let's dive into something the Stoics really mastered: the art of analyzing your judgments. Sounds pretty straightforward, right? But, trust me, there's more to it than meets the eye. When you start to dig into your judgments, you're actually unpacking layers of your own thought processes, biases, and assumptions. And guess what? This is where your intelligence starts to really take off. Think about it, every day, you're making a ton of judgments. Some are small, like deciding what to eat for breakfast. Others, though, they're bigger. They shape how you see the world, how you react to people, how you make decisions. But here's the kicker: how often do you stop and actually question those judgments? How often do you pause and ask yourself, is this really how things are? Or is this just how I'm seeing them right now? The Stoics were all about this kind of introspection. They believed that by analyzing your judgments, you could strip away the noise, the misconceptions, the emotional baggage that often clouds your thinking. And when you do that, when you really get to the core of your judgments, you start to see things as they truly are, not as your mind would have you believe they are. But how do you go about this? It's not as complicated as it sounds. Start by paying attention to those snap judgments, the ones that come almost automatically. Instead of just accepting them at face value, question them. Ask yourself where they're coming from. Are they based on facts, or are they colored by your own emotions or past experiences? This kind of questioning opens up your mind, makes you more aware of the filters through which you see the world. And let's not forget about the role of emotions in all of this. Emotions are powerful, and they have a sneaky way of influencing your judgments. The Stoics weren't about suppressing emotions, they were about understanding them, recognizing their influence, and not letting them drive the bus. When you analyze your judgments, you're not just looking at the logic behind them, you're also looking at the emotional undercurrents. Are you reacting out of fear? Anger? Pride? By identifying these emotions, you can separate them from your reasoning, leading to clearer, more rational judgments. Now, here's where things get interesting. The more you practice this, the more it becomes second nature. You start to develop a kind of mental agility, where you can quickly sift through your thoughts, discard what's irrelevant, and focus on what truly matters. This isn't just about making better decisions, it's about cultivating a sharper, more discerning mind. And here's the beauty of it: analyzing your judgments doesn't just make you smarter in the conventional sense. It deepens your understanding of yourself, of others, and of the world around you. It's like taking off a pair of foggy glasses and seeing everything with fresh clarity. You become more thoughtful, more deliberate, more wise. So, the next time you catch yourself making a judgment, pause. Take a moment to peel back the layers, to really understand where that judgment is coming from. It might just be the key to unlocking a deeper level of intelligence, one that the Stoics would certainly approve of. Number 10. Foster a growth mindset. Let's talk about something that's at the core of becoming not just smarter, but wiser: a growth mindset. Now, this might sound like one of those buzzwords everyone throws around, but the Stoics were onto this long before it became trendy. So, what exactly is a growth mindset, and why does it matter so much? At its heart, a growth mindset is all about believing that your abilities, intelligence, and even your character aren't fixed. They're not set in stone, predetermined at birth, or capped at some arbitrary limit. Instead, they're like clay, malleable, shapeable, capable of evolving over time. The Stoics understood that you're not just a passive recipient of your fate. You've got agency. You can change, you can improve, and you can grow. And this idea? It's powerful. When you foster a growth mindset, you start to see challenges differently. They're not roadblocks, they're opportunities. Every setback, every mistake, isn't a reflection of your inadequacy but a stepping stone towards something greater. It's like the Stoic idea that everything that happens can be turned to your advantage if you approach it with the right mindset. This perspective transforms how you handle life's ups and downs. Instead of getting stuck in a rut of "I can't," you shift into a mode of "how can I?" But here's the thing, a growth mindset isn't just about raw willpower or grit. It's also about being curious, being open to learning new things, and, most importantly, being willing to admit when you don't know something. The Stoics were big on this. Knowing what you don't know is a kind of wisdom in itself. When you embrace that, you start to see the gaps in your knowledge not as weaknesses but as opportunities to learn, to expand, to deepen your understanding. Now, let's get real for a moment. Cultivating a growth mindset isn't always easy. It's tempting to stick with what's comfortable, to avoid the discomfort that comes with trying something new, risking failure, or facing your own limitations. But here's where the Stoic perspective comes into play. They believed in the power of voluntary discomfort, putting yourself in challenging situations not because it's fun, but because it makes you stronger, more resilient, and, yes, smarter. And don't forget about the importance of self-reflection in all this. A growth mindset isn't just about charging ahead blindly. It's about taking the time to look back, to learn from your experiences, to understand what worked, what didn't, and why. The Stoics were all about this kind of introspection. They knew that to grow, you've got to first understand where you're starting from. So, how do you foster a growth mindset in your own life? Start by embracing challenges, not as things to be avoided, but as opportunities to stretch your abilities. Be curious, never stop asking questions, and never stop seeking out new knowledge. And perhaps most importantly, be patient with yourself. Growth takes time. It's a journey, not a sprint. In the end, fostering a growth mindset is about believing in your potential to change, to learn, and to become more than you are today. It's about recognizing that intelligence isn't fixed, it's fluid, it's dynamic, and it's something you can cultivate every single day. The Stoics knew this, and now you do too. So go ahead, embrace the journey, and watch your mind expand in ways you never thought possible. Number 11, seek solitude for deep contemplation. Let's talk about the power of solitude, the kind that's not just about being alone, but about diving deep into your own thoughts. The Stoics? They knew what was up. They realized that some of the most profound insights, the kind that can really sharpen your intelligence, come when you step away from the noise and distractions of everyday life and just think. Now, this isn't about being a hermit or cutting yourself off from the world. It's about carving out moments, real, intentional moments, where you can reflect, ponder, and just let your mind wander. You see, when you're constantly surrounded by the hustle and bustle, it's easy to get caught up in surface-level thinking. You're reacting, responding, ticking off the next thing on your list. But when you seek solitude, you give your brain the space it needs to go deeper, to explore those thoughts that usually get drowned out by all the noise. In solitude, you're not just thinking, you're contemplating. And there's a big difference. Thinking can be quick, shallow, flitting from one thing to the next. But contemplation? That's where you slow down, where you sit with an idea and really chew on it. You ask yourself questions, you play out different scenarios in your mind, you challenge your own assumptions. It's in these moments of deep contemplation that your mind starts to connect the dots in ways it couldn't when you were just skimming the surface. And let's be real, solitude can be uncomfortable at first. We're so used to being constantly stimulated that the silence can feel a bit eerie. But that's the beauty of it. In that quiet, you start to hear your own thoughts more clearly. You start to notice patterns, to understand what's really going on in your mind. And that's where the growth happens. That's where you start to develop a deeper, more nuanced understanding of yourself and the world around you. The Stoics were big on self-knowledge, and they knew that to truly know yourself, you needed to spend time alone with your thoughts. It's like having a conversation with yourself, a conversation where you're both the teacher and the student. You ask questions, you search for answers, and in the process, you develop a kind of mental clarity that's hard to achieve in the chaos of daily life. But here's the thing, solitude isn't just about sitting quietly in a room. It's about being intentional with your time. It's about creating a space, both physically and mentally, where you can engage in deep contemplation without interruptions. Maybe that means finding a quiet spot in nature, or maybe it's just turning off your phone and sitting with a notebook. Whatever it looks like for you, the key is to make it a regular practice. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes, and the more you'll start to see the benefits in your thinking, your decision-making, and your overall intelligence. So, seek out solitude. Not as an escape, but as a way to dive deeper into your own mind. In those moments of quiet reflection, you'll find a wellspring of insight and wisdom that can only come from within. And that, my friend, is a Stoic secret to not just surviving, but thriving. Number 12, limit consumption of superficial information. We live in an age where information is everywhere, like a river that never stops flowing. You dip your toe in, and before you know it, you're swept away by a current of tweets, memes, and headlines, all competing for your attention. But here's the kicker, not all of that information is worth your time. In fact, a lot of it is just noise, superficial, shallow, and ultimately, distracting. So, how do you stay sharp and truly intelligent in this sea of data? By limiting your consumption of superficial information. This isn't just about managing your time better, it's about protecting your mind from being cluttered with things that don't really matter. First, let's talk about what we mean by superficial information. It's the kind of content that's designed to grab your attention for a moment but leaves you with nothing of value. It's like junk food for the brain, tasty, maybe, but not nutritious. And just like with junk food, if you consume too much of it, you start to feel sluggish, distracted, and unable to focus on what really counts. When you limit your intake of this kind of content, you create space in your mind. Space to think deeply, to reflect, and to engage with ideas that actually matter. It's like clearing out a cluttered room. Once the junk is gone, you can breathe easier, move more freely, and focus on what's important. Your mind becomes more like a well-tuned instrument, ready to tackle complex problems and engage with profound ideas. But how do you do this? How do you resist the pull of the endless scroll, the constant barrage of notifications? It starts with being mindful of what you let into your mind. Before you click on that article or open that app, ask yourself, is this worth my time? Is this going to enrich my mind, or is it just another piece of fluff that I'll forget in 5 minutes? This kind of self-awareness is key. It's about being intentional with your attention, not just letting it be hijacked by the latest viral trend or clickbait headline. As you start to limit your consumption of superficial information, something interesting happens. You begin to notice how much clearer your thinking becomes. You're less likely to get caught up in trivial matters, and more focused on the things that truly matter to you. Your intelligence isn't just about what you know, it's about how well you can think, analyze, and understand. And all of that becomes easier when your mind isn't bogged down by meaningless noise. Moreover, by filtering out the superficial, you make room for the substantial. You have more time to read books, engage with thoughtful articles, and dive deep into subjects that challenge and expand your mind. This kind of deep engagement is where real intelligence grows. It's like exercising your brain, strengthening it with the intellectual equivalent of lifting weights. In the end, limiting your consumption of superficial information isn't about cutting yourself off from the world. It's about choosing quality over quantity. It's about being selective with what you let into your mind, so that your thoughts are clearer, your focus sharper, and your intelligence deeper. So, next time you're tempted to dive into a sea of meaningless content, remember, your mind is a valuable space. Keep it clean, keep it sharp, and watch your intelligence soar. Number 13, apply Stoic principles to modern technology. Stoicism might seem like an ancient philosophy far removed from our tech-driven world, but that's where it gets interesting. Imagine taking those timeless principles and applying them to the very devices and platforms that dominate our daily lives. Sounds like a paradox, right? But it's actually a brilliant way to boost your intelligence in an era where technology can either be a tool for growth or a source of distraction. First off, let's talk about control, one of the bedrock ideas in Stoicism. The Stoics believed in focusing on what you can control and letting go of what you can't. Now, think about how this plays out in your interactions with technology. You can't control the endless stream of notifications, updates, and content coming your way. But you can control how you respond to it. You can choose not to be a slave to the algorithm, to decide when and how you engage with technology instead of letting it dictate your time and attention. That's where your power lies. By applying this Stoic approach, you're not just using technology mindlessly, you're using it intentionally. You're deciding what serves you and what doesn't. This shift in mindset can make a huge difference in how you interact with the digital world. Instead of being pulled in every direction by apps and notifications, you become the one in charge. This kind of intentionality sharpens your focus, and in turn, boosts your intellectual capacity. You're no longer just consuming, you're curating your experiences, choosing tools and content that enhance your understanding and growth. Next, consider the Stoic practice of mindfulness. This isn't just some abstract idea, it's about being present and aware of your thoughts and actions. When you apply this to your use of technology, you start to notice how often you're drawn into mindless scrolling or distracted by trivial things. By being mindful, you can catch yourself in these moments and make a conscious choice to redirect your attention. It's like flexing a mental muscle. Each time you resist the urge to check your phone for no reason, you're strengthening your ability to focus on what truly matters. Another Stoic principle that fits beautifully with modern tech is the concept of moderation. The Stoics were all about balance, avoiding excess and finding the middle ground. In a world where binge-watching, doom-scrolling, and constant connectivity are the norm, practicing moderation is a superpower. It's about setting boundaries, knowing when enough is enough, and not letting technology consume more of your life than it deserves. By moderating your use of technology, you're not only protecting your time but also preserving your mental clarity. In the end, applying Stoic principles to modern technology isn't about rejecting the digital world, it's about mastering it. It's about using technology as a tool for growth, not letting it control you. By focusing on what you can control, practicing mindfulness, and embracing moderation, you transform your relationship with technology from one of dependency to one of empowerment. And in that empowerment, your intelligence finds room to flourish, unclouded by distraction, and fueled by intentional engagement. Number 14, practice voluntary discomfort. Choosing discomfort on purpose sounds a bit odd, doesn't it? But that's exactly what the Stoics were all about. They believed in putting themselves through small, controlled bouts of discomfort to toughen up, both mentally and physically. This practice isn't just about building resilience, it's also a surprisingly effective way to sharpen your mind and boost your intelligence. So, how does this work? Think of it this way: when you voluntarily step into discomfort, you're pushing your boundaries. You're telling your mind, hey, I'm in charge here, not you. It's like hitting the gym for your brain. Just as lifting weights strengthens your muscles, facing discomfort strengthens your mind. It teaches you to deal with challenges, to stay calm under pressure, and to think clearly even when things aren't going your way. And guess what? That's where intelligence thrives, not in comfort, but in challenge. Now, voluntary discomfort can take many forms. It doesn't have to be extreme or dramatic. It's about finding those small ways to make yourself uncomfortable, ways that make you think, adapt, and grow. Maybe it's about stepping out of your routine, doing something that scares you a little, or even just denying yourself a luxury you're used to. It's about training your mind to be okay with not being okay. And in doing so, you're expanding your mental capacity. Why is this important for intelligence? Well, comfort zones are like cozy little prisons. Sure, they feel safe, but they also limit your growth. When you're too comfortable, you stop questioning things. You stop pushing yourself. Your thinking becomes stagnant, predictable. But discomfort? It shakes things up. It forces you to think differently, to find new solutions, to see things from different angles. That's where creativity comes into play, and with it, a deeper kind of intelligence. By practicing voluntary discomfort, you're also teaching yourself to handle stress better. Let's face it, life isn't always smooth sailing. But if you've already conditioned yourself to face discomfort head-on, you'll be better equipped to deal with whatever comes your way. Stressful situations won't throw you off balance as easily, because you've been there before, by choice. This mental toughness allows you to keep a clear head, make better decisions, and approach problems with a calm, focused mind. Another cool thing about this practice is that it shifts your perspective. When you choose to be uncomfortable, you start to appreciate comfort more. It's like resetting your baseline for what you consider normal. Things that used to stress you out might start to seem trivial in comparison. This change in perspective helps you prioritize better, focusing on what really matters and ignoring the rest. And that's a mark of true intelligence, knowing what's worth your time and energy. So, don't shy away from discomfort. Embrace it, seek it out even. By making yourself uncomfortable on purpose, you're not just toughening up, you're leveling up your intelligence. It's about becoming more adaptable, more resilient, and more in tune with your own mind. And in the process, you'll find that discomfort isn't something to fear. It's something to welcome, because it's where real growth happens. Number 15, cultivate emotional control. Emotions, they're powerful, sometimes overwhelming, and often unpredictable. But what if you could harness that power, guiding it instead of being swept away? That's where cultivating emotional control comes in, and let's be real, it's a total game changer for boosting your intelligence. Think of your emotions as wild horses. If you let them run free, they'll take you on a chaotic ride, pulling you in every direction. But with a bit of training, those same horses can be steered with precision, taking you exactly where you want to go. Emotional control isn't about suppressing your feelings or pretending they don't exist. It's about understanding them, managing them, and using them to your advantage. And when you get the hang of it, your mind becomes sharper, clearer, and more focused. So, how does emotional control tie into intelligence? Well, when your emotions are in check, your mind has room to breathe. You're not constantly reacting, instead, you're responding, deliberately, thoughtfully. This shift from reaction to response is where intelligence starts to shine. You're no longer a slave to your impulses, and your decisions are grounded in reason rather than fleeting feelings. Emotional control also plays a huge role in how you process information. Let's face it, when you're angry, anxious, or overly excited, your brain is not at its best. Emotions can cloud your judgment, making it harder to think clearly or to see things from different perspectives. But when you've cultivated emotional control, you can step back, take a breath, and assess the situation with a level head. This ability to detach and analyze is crucial for deep thinking and problem solving, two key components of intelligence. But cultivating emotional control isn't about becoming a stoic robot. Far from it. It's about acknowledging your emotions, understanding where they come from, and choosing how to respond. Imagine you're faced with a frustrating situation. Instead of flying off the handle, you pause. You recognize the frustration bubbling up, but instead of letting it take over, you channel it into finding a solution. That's emotional control in action, and it's a skill that can be developed with practice. Another aspect of emotional control is resilience. Life throws curveballs, and sometimes those curveballs hit hard. Without emotional control, it's easy to be knocked off course, to let setbacks derail you. But when you've cultivated control, you're like a tree that bends with the wind instead of breaking. You stay grounded, weathering the storm, and that resilience feeds into your overall intelligence. You learn from challenges, adapt, and keep moving forward. And let's not forget about emotional control's impact on relationships. Intelligence isn't just about book smarts, it's also about social intelligence, how well you navigate interactions with others. When you manage your emotions, you communicate more effectively, listen better, and build stronger connections. You're not reacting to every slight or getting caught up in drama. Instead, you're focused, composed, and able to see things from others' perspectives, all of which contribute to a more intelligent approach to life. In the end, cultivating emotional control is like tuning an instrument. It takes time, patience, and practice, but the result is a mind that's more harmonious, more focused, and ultimately, more intelligent. It's about mastering yourself so that your emotions work for you, not against you. And when you reach that level of control, you'll find that your mind is not only sharper but also more at peace, ready to take on whatever challenges come your way. In the next section, we will go over Stoic rules to help reduce anger. Number 1, recognizing anger as natural. Let's take a moment to talk about something we all deal with, anger. But here's a little secret that might change your whole perspective on it. Anger is totally natural. Yep, it's as much a part of being human as breathing or laughing. Now, before you start thinking, well, duh, everyone gets angry, let's dig a bit deeper. What does it really mean to recognize anger as natural? It's more than just saying, everyone feels it. It's about understanding that anger is hardwired into us, it's part of our survival mechanism. Think about it, anger is an emotion that's been with us since the dawn of time. It's what our ancestors felt when they were in danger, and they needed that extra push of energy to fight or flee. It's this primal force that can sometimes take over, almost like flipping a switch in your brain. But that's not a bad thing, it's just a part of how we're built. When you see anger for what it is, a natural, instinctive reaction, you start to realize that getting mad isn't something to be ashamed of or scared of. It's not some foreign invader that hijacks your mind. It's you, responding to the world in a very human way. And when you recognize this, you can start to make peace with your anger. It's like saying to yourself, okay, I'm feeling angry right now, but that's just my brain doing its thing. I don't need to fight it, I just need to understand it. This is where Stoicism comes in, and it's pretty cool how these ancient philosophers were onto something so relevant today. The Stoics didn't say, never get angry. Instead, they acknowledged that anger happens, it's part of the human experience. But they also believed in something powerful, you don't have to let anger control you. Recognizing that anger is natural gives you the freedom to respond to it wisely, instead of reacting impulsively. Think about it. If you see anger as something evil or wrong, you're going to try to push it away, bury it deep, or pretend it doesn't exist. But that doesn't work, does it? It just makes the anger stronger, more explosive when it finally breaks free. But when you accept that anger is natural, you're not fighting against it anymore. Instead, you're learning to work with it, to understand why it's there, and what it's trying to tell you. And here's another twist, recognizing anger as natural doesn't mean you're giving it free rein to wreak havoc in your life. Far from it. It's about being mindful of your emotions. You notice the anger, you acknowledge it, and then you decide how to handle it. This way, anger becomes a signal rather than a tyrant. It's a sign that something needs your attention, but it's not something that should run the show. So, next time you feel that familiar heat rising inside you, take a breath. Remind yourself that what you're feeling is just a part of being human. It's not something to fear or suppress, but something to understand. When you recognize anger as natural, you give yourself a chance to respond in a way that aligns with your true self, calm, thoughtful, and in control. In this way, anger doesn't own you. Instead, you own your response to it. You can still feel that emotion, it's part of you, after all, but it no longer has the power to derail your peace of mind. And that, right there, is the first step toward never letting anger control you again. By embracing this Stoic perspective, you start to see anger not as an enemy, but as a teacher, guiding you toward greater self-awareness and inner calm. Number 2, engage in nonviolent communication. Engaging in nonviolent communication is like opening a door to understanding, even when emotions are high. It's a practice that allows you to navigate through those intense feelings without letting them explode into something harmful. Imagine it as a way of expressing what's on your mind without throwing fuel on the fire, something that keeps the conversation flowing smoothly, without the heat of anger. The first step in nonviolent communication is being mindful of how you express yourself. It's not about holding back your thoughts or feelings, but rather framing them in a way that's constructive. You can think of it as choosing your words carefully, not to manipulate but to make sure your message is received in the spirit you intend. This requires a bit of patience, a pause before you speak, to ensure that what comes out of your mouth is aligned with your true intention, not just a knee-jerk reaction. Now, let's talk about the role of empathy. When you engage in nonviolent communication, you're not just focused on what you want to say, but also on what the other person might be feeling. It's a dance, a back and forth where you're as much a listener as you are a speaker. This doesn't mean you're agreeing with everything the other person says, but you're making an effort to understand their perspective. It's about acknowledging their feelings, even if you don't agree with their conclusions. You might wonder, how does this help me not be angry? Well, when you communicate nonviolently, you're not just venting your frustration, you're channeling it into something that can actually solve the problem. Anger often comes from a place of not feeling heard or understood. By practicing nonviolent communication, you're making sure that both sides are heard. This reduces the chance of miscommunication and the anger that follows. Nonviolent communication also involves making requests rather than demands. This is a subtle but powerful shift. When you demand something, you're setting up a confrontation. It's like saying, "Do this, or else." But when you make a request, you're opening the door to collaboration. You're saying, "This is what I need, how can we make this work?" It turns the conversation from a battlefield into a partnership. Another key aspect is separating your observations from your judgments. It's easy to mix the two, especially when emotions are running high. But when you can observe a situation without immediately attaching a judgment to it, you're more likely to respond calmly. It's the difference between saying, "You never listened to me," and "I noticed that when I was talking, you didn't respond." The first statement is an accusation, while the second is an observation that opens up space for dialogue. Engaging in nonviolent communication also requires a level of self-awareness. You have to be in tune with your own needs and feelings to express them clearly. This isn't always easy, especially if you're used to bottling things up or if you're unsure of what you're really feeling. But the more you practice, the better you'll get at identifying what's going on inside you, and that's crucial for preventing anger from taking over. Finally, nonviolent communication isn't about being passive or letting people walk all over you. It's about being assertive in a way that's respectful and constructive. You're standing up for yourself, but you're doing it in a way that invites the other person to understand and cooperate, rather than to fight back. In the end, practicing nonviolent communication is like building a bridge over the chasm of anger. It's a way to connect with others without letting anger dictate the terms of the conversation. By choosing your words carefully, listening with empathy, making requests instead of demands, and staying aware of your own feelings, you create an environment where anger has less room to grow. And when anger can't find fertile ground, it withers away, leaving space for understanding and peace to take root. Number 3, Use delayed response techniques. When it comes to managing anger, one of the most powerful techniques you can use is the art of delayed response. It's simple in concept but can be transformative in practice. When you feel that familiar surge of irritation or frustration bubbling up inside, your instinct might be to react immediately, to say or do something in the heat of the moment. But here's where the magic happens. If you can pause, even for just a few seconds, you give yourself a chance to reclaim control. Think of delayed response techniques as hitting the pause button on your emotions. In those few moments, you create a buffer between the stimulus, whatever it is that's triggering your anger, and your reaction. This tiny gap, though it might seem insignificant, can be the difference between a regrettable outburst and a calm, considered response. It's like giving yourself the gift of time, and with it, the power to choose how you want to respond. Now, you might wonder, how do you actually practice this? It's not as complicated as it might seem. Start with something as basic as taking a deep breath. Inhale slowly, count to 3, and then exhale just as slowly. This simple act of breathing can work wonders, calming your nervous system and giving your brain a chance to catch up with your emotions. In that brief moment of calm, you can start to assess the situation with a clearer head. What exactly is making you angry? Is it worth the energy? Can it be resolved without conflict? Another effective strategy is to silently repeat a calming phrase to yourself. It could be something like, "I'm in control," or "This too shall pass." These words serve as a reminder that you're not a slave to your emotions. You have the power to steer them in a direction that serves you better. Over time, as you practice this, it becomes a mental habit, a natural reflex to pause and reflect rather than react impulsively. One of the beauties of delayed response techniques is that they're not about suppressing your anger. Stoicism doesn't teach us to ignore our emotions or pretend they don't exist. Instead, it encourages us to acknowledge them, understand them, and then decide how to deal with them in the most constructive way possible. By delaying your response, you're not bottling up your anger, you're simply giving yourself a moment to choose the best way to express it, or to decide if it needs to be expressed at all. Let's also talk about how this practice can change the dynamics of your interactions with others. When you react immediately in anger, you're often reacting based on assumptions or incomplete information. But when you take that pause, you're giving yourself a chance to see the bigger picture. You might realize that the other person didn't mean to offend you, or that the situation isn't as dire as it initially seemed. This can lead to more productive conversations and healthier relationships, as you're able to approach conflicts with a level head rather than a hot temper. There's also a certain sense of empowerment that comes from mastering delayed response techniques. It's like building a mental muscle. Every time you successfully pause and choose your reaction, you're strengthening your ability to stay calm under pressure. And over time, you'll find that it becomes easier and easier to maintain your composure, even in situations that would have previously set you off. Finally, remember that this is a practice. You won't get it perfect every time, and that's okay. The important thing is to keep trying, to keep pausing, and to keep choosing your responses mindfully. As you do, you'll start to notice a shift not just in how you handle anger, but in how you feel overall. There's a peace that comes from knowing you're in control of your emotions, rather than being controlled by them. And that's what Stoicism is all about, cultivating inner tranquility, regardless of what's happening around you. So, the next time you feel anger rising within you, remember to hit that pause button. Take a breath, repeat your calming phrase, and give yourself the space to respond rather than react. With practice, you'll find that this simple technique can transform not just your relationship with anger, but your entire approach to life. Number 4, limit exposure to triggers. Alright, let's talk about something that can seriously change how often you find yourself getting angry: limiting exposure to triggers. You know what I'm talking about, those little things that push your buttons, stir up your emotions, and suddenly, you're fuming. But here's the thing, you don't have to let these triggers have so much power over you. First off, let's acknowledge something. Triggers are everywhere. They could be anything from a certain phrase, a specific situation, or even just the vibe of a place. It's almost like they're just waiting to catch you off guard, right? But here's the secret sauce. What if you just avoided them? What if you took control and decided, nope, I'm not giving these things the chance to mess with my peace of mind? When you start thinking about it this way, it's like you're reclaiming your power. Instead of walking straight into situations that you know will tick you off, you make a conscious choice to steer clear. It's not about running away or being afraid of confrontation, it's about being smart. Why put yourself in the line of fire when you don't have to? Now, I get it, some things are harder to avoid than others. Maybe certain triggers are part of your daily life, things you can't just walk away from. But even then, there are ways to limit your exposure. It's all about setting boundaries, knowing when to step back, and understanding that your mental peace is worth protecting. You're not being weak or avoiding responsibility, you're practicing self-care at the highest level. Think about it like this: if you know a storm is coming, do you go out without an umbrella? No way, right? You prepare, you protect yourself. It's the same with your mental state. When you know what triggers your anger, you can take steps to minimize their impact. And that's not just smart, it's empowering. But let's go deeper. By limiting your exposure to triggers, you're also giving yourself the space to grow stronger internally. You're not just avoiding the things that make you angry, you're training your mind to be less reactive. The less you expose yourself to those triggers, the less control they have over you. Over time, you might find that things that used to drive you up the wall don't even faze you anymore. It's like building up a kind of mental immunity. And here's another angle: when you limit exposure to triggers, you're also limiting the chances of losing your cool in front of others. This is big because it means you're maintaining your composure, your dignity, and your sense of self. You're not letting external things dictate how you feel or how you act. Instead, you're staying true to yourself, calm and collected, no matter what's going on around you. Of course, this isn't about shutting yourself off from the world. It's not about avoiding every difficult situation or person. It's about being selective, about choosing what you let into your life and what you keep out. It's about deciding that your peace of mind is more important than letting triggers get the best of you. So, the next time you feel that familiar surge of irritation, ask yourself, is this something I can avoid? Is this situation or person really worth my peace? More often than not, the answer will be no. And that's your cue to limit your exposure, to take a step back, and to protect your inner calm. By doing this consistently, you're not just avoiding anger, you're mastering it. In the end, limiting exposure to triggers isn't about hiding or escaping. It's about creating a space in your life where anger doesn't get to call the shots. It's about being proactive, taking control, and deciding that your emotional well-being is worth more than any temporary satisfaction that might come from engaging with those triggers. And once you start doing this, you'll find that anger has less and less of a place in your life, until one day, you realize it's not even an issue anymore. That's the power of being intentional with what you expose yourself to. Number 5. Practice deep breathing and meditation. Let's dive into something that's both simple and powerful: deep breathing and meditation. You've probably heard it a million times: just breathe, take a deep breath, or meditate to calm down. But there's a reason these practices are constantly recommended. They work. And not just in some abstract, feel-good way, but in a real, tangible way that can transform how you deal with anger. First things first, let's talk about deep breathing. It's so basic, right? Something you do without even thinking. But when you do think about it, when you really focus on it, breathing becomes a tool, a way to take control of your emotions. You see, when anger hits, your body reacts. Your heart races, your muscles tense, and your breathing becomes shallow and quick. It's like your body is gearing up for battle. But here's where deep breathing flips the script. When you take a slow, deep breath, you're sending a signal to your brain that says, "Hey, we're not in danger. It's okay to calm down." That one simple act starts to slow everything down. Your heart rate drops, your muscles start to relax, and your mind begins to clear. It's almost like hitting the reset button. And the beauty of it is, you can do it anytime, anywhere. Just a few deep breaths, in through your nose, out through your mouth, and suddenly, that anger doesn't feel so overwhelming. Now, let's add meditation into the mix. If deep breathing is like a quick reset, meditation is more like regular maintenance for your mind. It's about taking a few minutes, or even just a few moments, each day to sit with your thoughts, to breathe deeply, and to focus on nothing but the present moment. Sounds easy, right? But it can be a challenge. Our minds are constantly buzzing with thoughts, worries, and distractions. Meditation is your chance to quiet that noise. When you make meditation a habit, you're not just calming your mind in the moment, you're training it to be calmer, period. Over time, you start to notice that things that used to rile you up don't have the same effect. You become more aware of your thoughts, more in control of your reactions. It's like building up your emotional resilience, one meditation session at a time. And here's the thing, you don't need to meditate for hours on end to see the benefits. Even just a few minutes a day can make a huge difference. It's about consistency, about making it a part of your routine, like brushing your teeth or having your morning coffee. And the best part? It's accessible to everyone. You don't need special equipment, a fancy app, or a specific location. All you need is a quiet spot and a few minutes of your time. Combining deep breathing with meditation creates a powerful 1-2 punch against anger. The deep breathing helps you manage the immediate physical response, while meditation works on the mental side, helping you build a stronger, more resilient mind. Together, they help you create a space between the trigger and your reaction, a space where you can choose how to respond instead of just reacting. So, next time you feel anger bubbling up, take a deep breath. Then take another. And if you have a few minutes, close your eyes and meditate. Focus on your breath, let your thoughts come and go without judgment, and just be in the moment. You'll find that anger starts to lose its grip on you. It becomes less of an automatic response and more of a fleeting emotion that you can observe, acknowledge, and then let go. In the end, practicing deep breathing and meditation isn't just about managing anger, it's about mastering it. It's about creating a sense of inner calm that stays with you, no matter what life throws your way. And that, my friend, is a skill worth cultivating. Number 6, engage in regular self-reflection. Let's talk about something that might sound a bit introspective but is incredibly powerful: self-reflection. It's one of those practices that, when done regularly, can seriously change how you react to the world, especially when it comes to anger. So, what's the deal with self-reflection? Why does it matter? First off, self-reflection is like holding up a mirror to your thoughts and emotions. It's taking the time to step back and say, okay, what's really going on here? You know how easy it is to get caught up in the heat of the moment, right? Anger flares up, and before you know it, you're saying or doing something you might regret later. But when you make self-reflection a habit, you're giving yourself the tools to understand why you're reacting the way you are. Think of it like this: anger doesn't just appear out of nowhere. There's usually something beneath the surface, a frustration, a fear, an unmet expectation. Self-reflection helps you dig into those underlying causes. It's not about beating yourself up or overanalyzing every little thing. It's about being curious, asking yourself questions like, why did that situation make me so angry? Or what was I really feeling when I got upset? When you start to explore these questions, you begin to understand the root of your anger, and that's where the real magic happens. When you regularly reflect on your emotions, you start to notice patterns. Maybe you realize that certain situations or people always push your buttons. Or perhaps you uncover a belief or expectation that's setting you up for disappointment and frustration. This awareness is key because it gives you the power to make changes. You're no longer at the mercy of your anger. Instead, you're taking an active role in understanding and managing it. And here's the cool part: the more you practice self-reflection, the better you get at catching yourself before anger takes over. It's like building muscle. At first, it might feel a bit awkward or uncomfortable, but over time, it becomes second nature. You start to recognize the early signs of anger, and instead of reacting impulsively, you pause. You think. You reflect. And in that space, you find the ability to choose a different response. But self-reflection isn't just about dealing with anger in the moment. It's also about long-term growth. When you take the time to reflect on your experiences, you're constantly learning about yourself. You're identifying areas where you can improve, where you can grow. And this growth doesn't just benefit you, it impacts your relationships, your work, your overall sense of well-being. It's like giving yourself a roadmap for personal development. So, how do you make self-reflection a regular part of your life? It doesn't have to be complicated. It could be as simple as setting aside a few minutes at the end of each day to think about how things went. What went well? What didn't? How did you handle your emotions? What could you do differently next time? You might find it helpful to jot down your thoughts in a journal, or maybe you prefer to just sit quietly and think. There's no right or wrong way to do it. What matters is that you're consistent. Over time, you'll start to notice the impact of this practice. You'll find that you're more in tune with your emotions, more aware of your triggers, and better equipped to handle anger when it arises. And the best part? You're doing this all for yourself. You're taking the time to understand yourself on a deeper level, and that's incredibly empowering. In the end, engaging in regular self-reflection isn't just about managing anger, it's about cultivating a deeper sense of self-awareness and emotional intelligence. It's about being proactive in your personal growth, about taking charge of your emotional landscape. And when you do that, anger doesn't stand a chance. You'll find that you're not just reacting to life anymore, you're responding with intention, with clarity, and with a calm that can only come from truly knowing yourself. Number 7, practice forgiveness and compassion. Practicing forgiveness and compassion is like unclenching a fist that's been gripping something too tightly for too long. It's the act of letting go, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary for your peace of mind. When you hold on to anger, it's as if you're carrying a heavy weight around with you, a burden that only grows with time. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is about setting that weight down. It's freeing yourself from the chains of resentment that bind you to the past. Now, you might wonder, why should I forgive? Doesn't that mean letting someone off the hook? Not exactly. Forgiveness isn't about excusing bad behavior or pretending that nothing happened. It's about choosing not to let that behavior continue to hurt you. It's about reclaiming your own power, refusing to be a prisoner of your own anger. It's saying, what happened is in the past, and I choose to move forward. This shift in perspective can be incredibly liberating. Compassion, too, plays a vital role in this process. It's the lens through which you can view the situation with a bit more clarity, a bit more kindness. When you practice compassion, you're not just thinking about how you were wronged. You're also considering the other person's humanity, their struggles, their imperfections. This doesn't mean you condone their actions, but it does mean you're willing to see them as more than just the source of your anger. But how do you cultivate this compassion, especially when emotions are still raw? It starts with understanding that everyone is flawed, including you. We all make mistakes, some bigger than others. When you remember that, it becomes a little easier to approach the situation with a softer heart. You're not so quick to judge, not so quick to hold onto the hurt. Instead, You start to see the situation from a broader perspective, one that includes empathy for the other person's experience, no matter how flawed it might be. Forgiveness and compassion aren't just acts of kindness toward others, they're acts of kindness toward yourself. Holding on to anger and resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. It doesn't work that way. The anger stays with you, festering, growing, until it colors your view of the world. But when you choose to forgive, when you choose to show compassion, you're letting go of that poison. You're choosing not to let it affect you anymore. This doesn't mean that forgiveness and compassion are easy. They're not. They require strength, patience, and a willingness to be vulnerable. But they're worth the effort because they lead to a life that's less burdened by negativity. When you forgive, you're not just releasing the other person, you're releasing yourself. And when you practice compassion, you're opening your heart, not just to others, but to yourself as well. One of the key elements in practicing forgiveness and compassion is patience. It's not something that happens overnight. It's a process, sometimes a long one. There will be days when the anger feels fresh, when the hurt seems impossible to move past. But with time and effort, those days become fewer and farther between. You start to notice a shift in how you feel, a lightness that wasn't there before. In the end, practicing forgiveness and compassion is about choosing peace over anger. It's about recognizing that holding on to resentment only harms you, while letting it go allows you to heal. It's a conscious decision to embrace understanding and empathy, to look at the situation from a place of wisdom rather than pain. And when you make that choice, you're not just protecting yourself from future anger, you're cultivating a sense of inner peace that can withstand whatever life throws your way. So, as you walk the path of Stoicism, remember that forgiveness and compassion are powerful tools in your arsenal. They're not signs of weakness, but of immense strength. By practicing them, you're not just avoiding anger, you're actively choosing a life of peace, understanding, and emotional freedom. Number 8. Embrace the power of perspective. Embracing the power of perspective is like putting on a new pair of glasses. You suddenly see everything in a different light. It's a shift in how you view the world, a way to step back and reconsider what's really going on before you let your emotions take control. When you change your perspective, you're not ignoring the situation or pretending it's something it's not. Instead, you're choosing to see it from a new angle, one that's less likely to trigger anger and more likely to lead to understanding. So, what does it mean to embrace perspective? It's about realizing that your initial reaction to something isn't the only reaction. It's one way of looking at things, but it's not the whole picture. When you're faced with a situation that stirs up anger, take a moment to ask yourself, is there another way to look at this? Can I see this from a different point of view? Often, the answer is yes, and that simple shift can make a world of difference. Let's say you're in a situation where someone's actions have really gotten under your skin. Your first instinct might be to react with frustration or irritation. But what if you paused, just for a moment, and tried to see things from their perspective? Maybe they're dealing with something you don't know about, or maybe they didn't intend to cause harm. This doesn't excuse their behavior, but it does allow you to approach the situation with a bit more calmness, a bit more understanding. Changing your perspective also means recognizing that not everything is about you. Sometimes, we take things personally when they're really not. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that someone's actions are a direct attack on us, when in reality, they might have nothing to do with us at all. By broadening your perspective, you start to see that there's a bigger picture at play, one that's not centered solely on your own experience. This realization can be incredibly freeing. It allows you to detach from the situation emotionally and see it for what it is, rather than what you initially perceived it to be. Perspective is also about time. When you're caught up in the heat of the moment, everything feels immediate, urgent, overwhelming. But what if you could fast forward a bit, see how you might feel about this situation tomorrow, next week, or even next year? chances are, the intensity of your feelings will diminish over time. By keeping this in mind, you can remind yourself that what feels monumental right now might not even matter in the grand scheme of things. This helps you keep your emotions in check, preventing them from spiraling out of control. Another aspect of embracing perspective is understanding that you always have a choice in how you respond. You might not be able to control what happens to you, but you can control how you interpret it and how you react. This is where the power of perspective really shines. It gives you the ability to choose your response rather than being a slave to your initial emotional reaction. By taking a step back and looking at the situation from multiple angles, you empower yourself to make a more measured, thoughtful response, one that's less likely to be driven by anger. In the end, embracing the power of perspective is about opening your mind to the possibility that there's more than one way to see the world. It's about recognizing that your first reaction isn't always the best one, and that by taking the time to consider other viewpoints, you can diffuse your anger before it takes hold. This isn't always easy. It requires patience, humility, and a willingness to look beyond your own immediate feelings. But the rewards are worth it. By practicing this mental shift, you'll find that you're less prone to anger, more understanding, and ultimately, more at peace with yourself and the world around you. So, the next time you feel that familiar surge of anger rising within you, take a moment to pause and adjust your perspective. Ask yourself if there's another way to see the situation, if there's a different narrative that might change how you feel. By doing this, you're not just avoiding anger, you're actively choosing to engage with life in a way that's calmer, more thoughtful, and ultimately more fulfilling. Number 9. Use grounding techniques. When it comes to anger, one of the most effective tools you can have in your mental toolbox is grounding techniques. These techniques are all about bringing you back to the present moment, pulling you out of that swirling storm of emotion and into the here and now. When you're grounded, you're less likely to be swept away by your anger. Instead, you anchor yourself, steadying your mind and body so that you can navigate the situation with a calm and clear perspective. Let's break it down. Grounding is about connecting with your senses, what you can see, hear, touch, smell, or even taste, right in the moment. When anger starts to flare up, it's easy to get lost in the heat of it all, but grounding techniques act like a reset button for your mind. They pull you out of the abstract world of thoughts and emotions and plant you firmly back into the physical reality. So, how do you do it? Start with something simple. For instance, you can focus on your breathing. Feel the air as it enters your nostrils, cool and refreshing. Notice how your chest rises with each inhale and falls with each exhale. Breathing is something so basic, but when you really pay attention to it, it has a way of calming the mind. It's like giving yourself a mental timeout, a moment to gather your thoughts and settle your emotions. Another powerful grounding technique is to engage with your surroundings. Look around you. Really see what's in front of you. Notice the colors, the shapes, the textures. Touch something, maybe the fabric of your clothing or the surface of a nearby object. Feel its texture, its temperature. These small actions might seem insignificant, but they work wonders in bringing you back to the present. They remind you that you are here, now, in this moment, not lost in a whirlwind of anger. You might also find it helpful to engage in a bit of mindful listening. What can you hear? Maybe the hum of an appliance, the distant sound of traffic, or the rustle of leaves if you're outside. Tuning into these sounds can help you detach from the anger and instead focus on something neutral, something that isn't tied to whatever's provoking you. The beauty of grounding techniques is that they're incredibly versatile. You can use them anywhere, anytime. You don't need special equipment or a quiet space, though those things can certainly enhance the experience. Grounding is all about making use of what you have right in front of you, in the moment, to bring your mind back to a state of calm. Now, the real power of grounding comes when you practice it regularly. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes. At first, it might feel a bit awkward or forced, especially if you're in the midst of a strong emotional reaction. But over time, grounding can become your go-to response, a habit that helps you regain your composure whenever you start to feel overwhelmed. And let's not forget, grounding techniques aren't just about diffusing anger. They're about cultivating a deeper sense of presence in your everyday life. When you're grounded, you're more in tune with your surroundings, more connected to your own body and mind. This heightened awareness can help you navigate not just anger, but all sorts of emotional challenges with greater ease and grace. So, the next time you feel anger starting to take hold, try grounding yourself. Focus on your breath, engage with your senses, and anchor yourself in the present moment. It's a simple practice, but it can have a profound impact on how you manage your emotions. Over time, you'll find that anger has less power over you. Instead of being swept away by it, you'll be able to observe it, acknowledge it, and then let it go. And that's where true emotional freedom begins. Number 10, understand your emotions. Understanding your emotions is like unlocking a hidden treasure chest of insights. It's not just about recognizing that you're angry, sad, or frustrated. It's about digging deeper, peeling back the layers, and really getting to the core of what's going on inside. Why are you feeling this way? What triggered this response? And most importantly, what can you learn from it? Let's start with the basics. Emotions, especially intense ones like anger, can feel overwhelming. They can take over, dictating how we think, what we say, and what we do. But here's the thing, emotions are messengers. They're signals from your mind and body, trying to tell you something important. When anger flares up, it's usually because something feels off, unjust, or threatening in some way. But instead of just reacting to that anger, take a moment to listen to it. What is it really trying to say? Sometimes, anger is like a mask. It can cover up other, more vulnerable emotions, fear, hurt, disappointment. By taking the time to understand your emotions, you're giving yourself the opportunity to see what's beneath that mask. You're acknowledging that there's more to the story than just the surface-level anger. And when you start to do this, you begin to see patterns. Maybe certain situations or people tend to trigger your anger more than others. Maybe there are unresolved issues that keep bubbling up, manifesting as anger. The more you understand these patterns, the better equipped you'll be to handle them in the future. Now, understanding your emotions doesn't mean you have to analyze every single feeling in real time. That would be exhausting. But it does mean being mindful and reflective. When you notice anger rising, instead of immediately reacting, take a step back. Ask yourself, what's really going on here? You might be surprised by the answers. Maybe it's not just about the situation at hand. Maybe it's connected to something deeper, something that's been simmering under the surface for a while. Here's where things get interesting. Once you start to understand your emotions, you gain a sense of control over them. They're no longer these wild, uncontrollable forces that take you by surprise. Instead, they become part of a dialogue you have with yourself. Oh, I'm feeling angry because, and in that dialogue, you can start to make decisions. Do I need to address this now, or can it wait? Is this something that requires a response, or is it better to let it go? Understanding your emotions gives you options, and options give you power. One of the key benefits of understanding your emotions is that it can help you break free from the cycle of reactive anger. You know how it goes, something happens, you get angry, you react, and then maybe you regret it later. But when you understand what's fueling your anger, you can choose a different path. You can decide to respond instead of react. And that response can be calm, measured, and thoughtful, rather than impulsive and driven by unchecked emotion. Another important aspect of understanding your emotions is the self-compassion it fosters. When you start to see your emotions as messengers rather than enemies, you can approach them with kindness rather than judgment. You begin to realize that it's okay to feel angry, sad, or frustrated. These are natural human responses. What matters is how you deal with those emotions. By understanding them, you're taking the first step toward managing them in a healthy and constructive way. In the end, understanding your emotions is about building a better relationship with yourself. It's about acknowledging that your feelings are valid, but also recognizing that you have the power to choose how you respond to them. It's about moving from a place of reaction to a place of thoughtful action. And when you get to that point, you'll find that anger loses its grip on you. Instead of being something that controls you, it becomes something you can understand, manage, and ultimately, transcend. As we come to the end of this journey into mastering anger with the wisdom of Stoicism, remember that the power to control your emotions lies within you. By recognizing anger as a natural emotion, practicing delayed response, and incorporating deep breathing and meditation into your daily life, you're not just avoiding anger, you're transforming it into something far more powerful, inner peace. In the next section, we will go over Stoic rules to help you detach from someone. Number 1, use rational detachment to separate emotion from logic. When you're trying to emotionally detach from someone, one of the most powerful tools at your disposal is something called rational detachment. It's about taking a step back, pausing, and letting your logical brain step into the driver's seat. Now, this doesn't mean you're cold-hearted or ignoring your feelings. Quite the opposite. You're simply choosing to separate the emotional noise from the rational signals, allowing yourself to see things as they are, not as your feelings would have you believe. Imagine for a moment, you're in the middle of an emotional storm. It's easy to get swept away, right? Emotions are like that, intense, immediate, demanding your attention. But rational detachment is like stepping into the eye of the storm. It's that calm center where you can observe what's happening without being pulled in. You're still aware of the emotions swirling around, but you're not letting them dictate your every move. The key to rational detachment is awareness. You need to catch yourself in those moments when emotions start to take over. This is when you ask yourself, what's really going on here? What are the facts? What do I actually know for sure? These questions help you strip away the layers of emotion to get to the core of the situation. And once you do that, you're in a better position to make decisions that aren't clouded by emotional bias. But let's be honest, separating emotion from logic isn't always easy. Emotions are persuasive, they'll try to convince you that they're the only truth that matters. That's why it's essential to practice this detachment regularly. Start with the little things. When something annoys you, instead of reacting immediately, pause. Take a breath. Think, is this worth my energy? What's the logical response here? Over time, this becomes a habit, and you'll find it easier to apply in more significant situations. Now, rational detachment doesn't mean you're ignoring your emotions. They still have a role to play. Emotions are signals, after all. They tell you when something's wrong or when something matters to you. The trick is to acknowledge them without letting them be the boss. You're in control, not your emotions. Another aspect of rational detachment is recognizing the difference between what you can control and what you can't. Emotions often get tangled up in things beyond our control, other people's actions, external circumstances, the past. Rational detachment reminds you to focus on what you can influence, your thoughts, your actions, your responses. By honing in on these, you free yourself from the emotional turmoil that comes from trying to control the uncontrollable. And here's the thing, rational detachment doesn't just help you in the moment. It has a lasting impact on your emotional well-being. Over time, you'll notice that situations that used to trigger strong emotional reactions don't have the same power over you. You'll feel more grounded, more in control, more at peace. It's like building a mental muscle. The more you practice, the stronger it gets. So, the next time you feel emotions starting to cloud your judgment, remember to step back. Engage your rational mind. Separate the facts from the feelings. It's not about shutting down your emotions, but about not letting them run the show. You're making a conscious choice to prioritize logic when it matters most. And that, in itself, is a powerful act of emotional detachment. Number 2, accept the impermanence of relationships. Let's dive into a fundamental truth that we all like to tiptoe around: relationships aren't permanent. It's like we're trying to hold on to smoke, expecting it to stay put in our hands. But smoke is gonna do what smoke does, right? It drifts away, disperses, fades out. And that's how it is with relationships, no matter how much we might want to believe otherwise. When we start to really get this, deep down, a shift happens. We start to see that holding on too tightly isn't just unhelpful, it's kind of like denying reality. Impermanence is baked into the fabric of life. It's not just a quirk of relationships, it's a fundamental part of the universe. Everything, every person, every connection we have, is in a constant state of change. Nothing stays exactly as it is. Now, this isn't about becoming a cold, unfeeling rock. It's not about shutting yourself off from emotions or pretending you don't care. That's not detachment, that's denial. True detachment is about embracing the ebb and flow of connections without clinging to the idea that they should last forever. It's understanding that people come into our lives for a season, and sometimes, that season is shorter than we expected. When you grasp the impermanence of relationships, you stop resisting change. You stop fearing the natural progression of things. Instead, you start appreciating moments for what they are: temporary. There's a certain freedom in that, a lightness. It's like you can finally breathe because you're no longer weighed down by the need to make something last that isn't meant to. You see, when you accept impermanence, you start to live in the moment. You stop worrying so much about what's going to happen next or how long something's going to last. You just appreciate what's right in front of you, knowing it could change at any time. And that's okay. That's more than okay, it's beautiful. Because every moment, every relationship, is unique in its temporariness. There's also this peace that comes with acceptance. When you're not constantly fighting against the flow of life, trying to keep everything just the way it is, you're free to experience things as they are. You let go of the need to control outcomes, to force something to last when it's naturally winding down. And in that letting go, you find a sense of calm. This calm, this acceptance, isn't about giving up. It's about understanding the nature of life and relationships. It's about knowing that everything has its time, its place, its purpose. And when that time is up, it's not a failure, it's just the way of things. So, embrace the fleeting nature of connections. Don't try to hold on to smoke. Instead, appreciate the way it dances, the way it fills the air, and then, when it's time, let it go with grace. By doing so, you're not losing anything. You're gaining a deeper connection with life itself, with the rhythm of existence that's been there all along. And in that connection, you find the strength to move forward, detached but not distant, present but not possessive. That's where true emotional freedom lies. Number 3, focus on your life's purpose. Focusing on your life's purpose is like finding that inner compass that helps you steer clear of emotional turbulence. When your mind is occupied with something that truly matters to you, something that gives your life meaning, detaching from someone becomes less of a struggle and more of a natural progression. Now, let's get into this. Imagine your life as a journey, and every step you take is driven by your purpose. That purpose isn't just some vague idea floating around, it's the very thing that keeps you going, even when life throws curveballs. It's the thing that makes you get out of bed in the morning, the thing that fuels your passion. When you're fully immersed in pursuing that purpose, there's less room for distractions, especially those that come from emotional attachments that don't serve your greater goal. But here's the thing, finding and sticking to your purpose isn't always easy. It's not like you just wake up one day and everything clicks into place. It's a process, a journey of self-discovery and growth. It's about tuning out the noise, the unnecessary drama, and the emotional clutter that can cloud your judgment. You have to ask yourself, what is it that I'm truly passionate about? What do I want my life to stand for? When you start focusing on those questions, the emotional grip that someone might have on you begins to loosen. You see, the more you align with your purpose, the more you realize that you are your own person, capable of forging your own path. This realization is incredibly empowering. It gives you the strength to let go of emotional ties that no longer contribute positively to your life. It's not about being cold or indifferent, it's about being in control of your own narrative. When you're focused on your purpose, you naturally gravitate towards things, people, and experiences that align with that purpose. And those that don't? They start to fade away on their own. This is where the Stoic mindset really shines. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control and let go of what we can't. When you zero in on your life's purpose, you're essentially taking control of what truly matters. You're not wasting energy on things that are beyond your control, like trying to change someone else's behavior or clinging to a relationship that's not fulfilling. Your purpose becomes a shield against emotional pain. It gives you perspective, reminding you that life is about more than just fleeting emotions. It's about growth, self-improvement, and making a meaningful impact in whatever way resonates with you. The more you invest in your purpose, the less power emotional attachments have over you. You start to see them for what they are, temporary, often distracting, and not always in line with your true goals. And here's a little secret. When you're fully focused on your purpose, you attract the right kind of energy into your life. You attract people who support and uplift you, rather than those who drain you. Your purpose acts like a magnet, drawing in the things that help you grow and pushing away the things that hold you back. Emotional detachment isn't about building walls, it's about creating space for what really matters. So, when you find yourself struggling to let go of someone, shift your focus. Dive deep into your purpose. Pour your energy into it, let it consume you in the best possible way. The more you immerse yourself in your life's purpose, the easier it becomes to detach emotionally. It's like shifting gears in a car. Once you find the right gear, everything starts to flow smoothly, and the road ahead looks clearer than ever. In the end, focusing on your life's purpose isn't just about detaching from someone, it's about embracing your own journey. It's about recognizing that you are the protagonist in your own story, and you get to choose what that story looks like. When you live with purpose, emotional detachment isn't a struggle, it's a natural, empowering choice that propels you forward. Number 4, practice the art of observing without absorbing. Alright, let's talk about a skill that can seriously change how you handle emotional situations, observing without absorbing. It's like you're watching a movie. You see everything happening on the screen, you feel the intensity of the scenes, but you know you're not actually in the movie. You're just a spectator. That's the mindset we're aiming for when dealing with emotions, especially in relationships that can get a little too intense. So, what does it mean to observe without absorbing? It's about creating a mental space between what you see and what you take in. Imagine you're a mirror. The mirror reflects everything, right? It shows what's in front of it but doesn't hold onto anything. It doesn't cling to the image once it's gone. Practicing this in your daily life means you can see, hear, and experience things without letting them stick to you like emotional glue. This doesn't mean you're ignoring what's happening. Far from it. You're fully aware, fully present, but you're not letting those emotions settle in and take root inside you. You're choosing what to internalize and what to let pass by. It's about maintaining your inner calm, no matter what's swirling around you. When you start observing without absorbing, you're taking control of your emotional boundaries. You decide what gets in and what stays out. This is huge because it keeps you from getting swept up in someone else's emotional storm. You can see the storm, feel the wind, maybe even get a little wet, but you're not being blown away by it. You stay grounded, centered. But this isn't just about protecting yourself. It's also about understanding others better. When you're not tangled up in your own reactions, you can see things more clearly. You notice the small details, the underlying emotions, the unspoken words. You start to see things as they are, not as you feel them to be. This clarity helps you make better decisions, respond more thoughtfully, and stay true to yourself. Now, this doesn't happen overnight. It takes practice, patience, and a lot of self-awareness. But the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. You start catching yourself before you dive into someone else's emotional drama. You pause, take a breath, and remind yourself that you're just observing. You're there, but you're not getting sucked in. And here's the thing, when you practice observing without absorbing, you actually start to feel more peaceful. You're no longer carrying the weight of everyone else's emotions. You're lighter, freer. You can move through life with a sense of ease because you're not constantly being weighed down by things that aren't yours to carry. So, next time you find yourself in a situation where emotions are running high, try this: step back, observe, and let the feelings pass through you without sticking. It's like standing in the rain but not getting wet. You see the drops, you hear them, but they just roll right off. That's the art of observing without absorbing, being in the moment, fully present, but not taking on more than you need to. It's a practice, and like any art, it gets better with time. The more you do it, the more you'll find that you can stay calm and centered, no matter what's going on around you. And that, my friend, is a powerful way to stay emotionally detached. Number 5. Cultivate the virtue of apathy toward unnecessary attachments. Let's dive into a concept that often gets a bad rap: apathy. Now, we're not talking about being indifferent to life itself, or becoming some kind of emotionless robot. No, what we're focusing on here is a very specific kind of apathy, the kind that applies to unnecessary attachments. It's about learning to care less about the things that don't really matter, the things that weigh you down rather than lift you up. So, what exactly are these unnecessary attachments? They're those little hooks that latch onto your mind and heart, things that seem important in the moment, but when you step back, you realize they're just distractions. Maybe it's that argument you had, or that minor slight you can't seem to let go of. Or maybe it's an unhealthy obsession with someone who, deep down, you know isn't good for you. Whatever it is, it's taking up space in your mind and heart that could be better used elsewhere. Here's where cultivating apathy comes in. Apathy toward these attachments isn't about not caring at all, it's about choosing where to place your emotional energy. It's saying, this isn't worth my peace. This doesn't deserve my focus. It's about prioritizing your mental and emotional well-being over things that are, in the grand scheme of things, pretty insignificant. Think of it like clearing out a cluttered room. You start by asking yourself, do I really need this? Does it serve me? If the answer is no, you let it go. The same goes for your attachments. Ask yourself, is this adding value to my life? Is it helping me grow, or is it just holding me back? If it's the latter, it's time to let it go, with no guilt and no second guessing. But how do you actually do this? It starts with awareness. You need to be able to recognize when you're getting too attached to something that doesn't deserve that level of importance. It's about catching yourself in those moments of unnecessary emotional investment and stepping back. Take a deep breath, reassess, and decide whether this is really worth the energy you're pouring into it. And here's the thing, when you start practicing this, you'll notice a shift. Life becomes lighter. You're no longer bogged down by the trivial stuff. You have more room, more freedom, to focus on what really matters. You become more centered, more in control of your emotions, because you're not letting yourself get swept away by every little thing. This doesn't mean you're cutting yourself off from everything or everyone. It's not about building walls, it's about building discernment. You're still open to meaningful connections and experiences, but you're also not letting yourself get tangled up in things that don't serve you. It's about finding balance, caring deeply about the things that truly matter, while letting the rest roll off your back. Cultivating apathy toward unnecessary attachments is a powerful practice. It's like pruning a tree. You trim away the dead, unnecessary branches so the tree can grow stronger, healthier. In the same way, by letting go of what doesn't serve you, you make room for what does. You allow yourself to grow, to focus on the things that truly matter. And in that space, you find a deeper sense of peace, of freedom. You're no longer a prisoner to your attachments, you're the master of your emotions, your energy, your life. And that, my friend, is a state of mind worth cultivating. Number 6, recognize what's within your control / Let's talk about control. It's something we all crave, right? The idea that we can shape our world, bend it to our will, and make everything go exactly the way we want. But here's the catch, most things are way outside our control. This is where the Stoic mindset comes in handy, especially when you're trying to emotionally detach from someone. So, what's within your control? Let's break it down. Your thoughts, your actions, your responses, that's pretty much it. Everything else? Totally out of your hands. You can't control what someone else says or does, no matter how much you might want to. You can't control how they feel or how they perceive you. And you definitely can't control the past or predict the future. These are the facts. It's a hard pill to swallow, but once you do, it's incredibly freeing. Think about it. How much time and energy do we waste trying to control the uncontrollable? We stress, we worry, we try to manipulate situations to get the outcome we desire. But all that effort? It's like trying to catch the wind. Futile. Instead, Stoicism teaches us to focus on what's actually within our power. It's about narrowing your scope to what you can change, your own mind. When you recognize what's within your control, you stop giving your energy to things that don't deserve it. It's like decluttering your mental space. You clear out the noise, the anxiety, the frustration, and what's left is clarity. You see things as they are, not as you wish they could be. And that clarity? It's a game changer when you're trying to detach emotionally. Let's say you're in a situation that's stirring up a lot of emotions. Maybe it's something someone said, or a situation that's not going the way you hoped. You feel that tension rising, that impulse to react. But then, you pause. You ask yourself, what's within my control here? Can I change this person's behavior? Can I alter the course of events? Or is this one of those things I just have to accept? By focusing on what you can control, your response, your mindset, you're not just detaching from the situation emotionally. You're reclaiming your power. You're deciding how much mental and emotional real estate this situation gets to occupy. And more often than not, you'll find that it's not worth the space you were giving it. Here's another thing. When you focus on what's within your control, you become more resilient. You're not as easily shaken by external events because you're not tethered to outcomes that are out of your reach. You start to build a kind of emotional armor, not the kind that blocks out feelings, but the kind that keeps you steady in the face of life's unpredictability. So next time you're feeling overwhelmed or tangled up in emotions, take a moment to step back. Ask yourself what's truly within your control. Then, let go of the rest. It's not about being indifferent or uncaring, it's about being wise with your energy, focusing on what you can actually change. And when you do that, you'll find that emotional detachment isn't just possible, it's liberating. Number 7, cultivate inner calm through meditation. When it comes to emotionally detaching from someone, one of the most powerful tools you can tap into is meditation. Now, I know, meditation might sound like just sitting quietly with your eyes closed, but it's way more than that. It's like a mental reset button, a way to cultivate a deep inner calm that helps you stay grounded, no matter what's going on around you. Think of meditation as your personal retreat. It's a place where you can step away from the chaos of emotions, the whirlwind of thoughts, and just be. And in that space of being, you start to create a buffer between you and your feelings. It's not about ignoring them or pushing them away, it's about observing them from a distance, kind of like watching clouds pass by in the sky. You see them, you acknowledge them, but you don't let them control you. The beauty of meditation lies in its simplicity. You don't need any special equipment or a fancy setup. All it takes is a few minutes of your time and a willingness to just sit with yourself. Start by finding a quiet spot where you won't be disturbed. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and take a few deep breaths. Just focus on your breath, the in and out, the rise and fall. It sounds almost too simple, but that's where the magic happens. As you settle into this practice, you'll notice that your mind starts to wander. That's totally normal. Thoughts will pop up, some about the person you're trying to detach from, some about other random things. Don't worry about it. The goal isn't to empty your mind, but to gently bring your focus back to your breath every time it drifts. Each time you do this, you're strengthening your ability to stay calm and centered, no matter what distractions come your way. Now, let's talk about the real payoff here. Over time, as you make meditation a regular habit, you'll start to notice a shift in how you respond to things. Those emotional triggers that used to set you off, they'll lose their grip. It's like building an emotional muscle. The more you practice, the stronger you get at staying cool, calm, and collected. And this inner calm you're cultivating? It's a game changer. It gives you the clarity to see things as they are, not as your emotions would have you believe. When you're calm, you're not reactive. You don't get swept away by anger, sadness, or anxiety. Instead, you can take a step back, assess the situation with a clear mind, and choose how you want to respond. That's the essence of emotional detachment, not being cold or indifferent, but being in control of your emotional landscape. Meditation is like a sanctuary for your mind. It's where you go to recharge, to reconnect with yourself, to find that inner peace that's always there, waiting for you. So, give it a try. Start small, maybe just 5 minutes a day, and see how it feels. You might be surprised at how something so simple can have such a profound impact on your ability to detach emotionally. Number 8. Embrace the Stoic virtue of indifference. Let's dive into the Stoic virtue of indifference, a concept that might seem a bit tricky at first but is actually a powerful tool for emotional detachment. Now, when we talk about indifference in the Stoic sense, we're not talking about apathy or not caring at all. It's more about finding that sweet spot where you're not overly attached to things outside your control. Think of it this way: life is full of ups and downs, things that happen beyond our influence. The Stoics believe that we shouldn't let these external events dictate our inner peace. Instead, they encouraged us to adopt a mindset of indifference toward things that don't ultimately matter, things like others' opinions, material wealth, or even the unpredictable nature of relationships. When you embrace this virtue, you're not saying you don't care about anything. You're just deciding not to let these external factors have power over your emotions. It's about recognizing that you can't control what happens outside of you, but you can control how you respond. That's where the real power lies, in your response, in your ability to stay grounded regardless of what life throws at you. So how do you practice this? Start by observing your reactions. Notice when you get upset or anxious about something that, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't really affect your core values or well-being. Ask yourself, is this something I can control? Is it worth my emotional energy? Most of the time, you'll find that it's not. This practice of indifference is like building a mental shield. It doesn't mean you're shutting off your feelings or becoming a robot. It means you're choosing to protect your peace of mind by not getting too invested in things that are fleeting or outside your influence. You're focusing on what truly matters, your own actions, your character, your principles. The beauty of this Stoic approach is that it frees you from the emotional roller coaster that often comes with attachment. When you're indifferent to things that don't align with your values or that you can't control, you're less likely to be swayed by them. You remain steady, unshaken by the tides of fortune or misfortune. This doesn't happen overnight. It's a practice, something you cultivate over time. Start small, with everyday annoyances or disappointments. Gradually, as you get better at it, you'll find that even bigger challenges don't knock you off balance. You'll be able to walk through life with a calm center, untouched by the chaos around you. In the end, embracing the Stoic virtue of indifference isn't about being detached from life. It's about being fully engaged with what really matters, your inner world, your peace, your sense of self, while letting go of everything else. It's a liberating way to live, and it's key to mastering emotional detachment. So, give it a try. Let go of what you can't control, focus on what you can, and watch as your emotional resilience grows. Number 9. Understand the nature of loss. Understanding the nature of loss is like grasping the very essence of what it means to be human. Loss, in all its forms, is an inevitable part of our journey. Whether it's the end of a relationship, the passing of time, or the shifting tides of life, loss is something we all encounter. But how we deal with it, that's where things get interesting. Let's start by acknowledging that loss isn't just something that happens to us, it's woven into the fabric of existence. Everything is in a constant state of flux. Seasons change, people grow, circumstances evolve. In this dance of life, nothing remains the same forever. When you start to truly understand this, you realize that loss isn't something to be feared or resisted. It's simply part of the natural order of things. Now, this doesn't mean loss isn't painful. It can be deeply unsettling, even heart-wrenching at times. But here's the kicker: when you grasp the nature of loss, that pain takes on a different meaning. It becomes less about clinging to what was and more about embracing what is. Loss is a reminder of impermanence, of the ever-changing landscape of life. And within that impermanence, there's a kind of beauty, a rawness that makes life all the more precious. Understanding loss also means recognizing that it's not the end. It's a transition, a shift from one state of being to another. When you lose something or someone, it creates space for growth, for new experiences, for different perspectives. This doesn't make the loss any less real, but it does change the way you perceive it. Instead of seeing loss as a void, you start to see it as a doorway to something new. Here's where the Stoic mindset comes into play. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what's within our control and accept what isn't. Loss, by its very nature, is often beyond our control. We can't stop time, we can't change the past, and we can't hold on to things that are meant to pass. But what we can control is our response to loss. We can choose to let it define us, or we can choose to let it refine us. When you understand loss, you start to see it as a teacher. It teaches you about resilience, about the strength you didn't know you had. It teaches you about the transient nature of life, reminding you to cherish the moments while they last. And most importantly, it teaches you that letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means honoring what was, while making room for what's to come. The nature of loss is also intertwined with the concept of attachment. We suffer because we're attached to things, people, and outcomes. But when you realize that everything is temporary, that nothing is truly yours to keep forever, the grip of attachment starts to loosen. You begin to appreciate things for what they are, in the moment, without the need to possess or cling to them. So, when you're faced with loss, take a step back and ask yourself, what is this loss teaching me? How can I grow from this experience? Instead of seeing loss as something that diminishes you, see it as something that shapes you, that adds depth to your journey. In the end, understanding the nature of loss is about coming to terms with life's impermanence. It's about finding peace in the midst of change, and strength in the face of adversity. Loss will happen, it's an inevitable part of the human experience. But when you understand its nature, you gain a deeper appreciation for life's fleeting moments, and a greater resilience to move forward, no matter what comes your way. Number 10. Embrace the practice of solitude. Embracing the practice of solitude is like diving into a deep, tranquil pool, away from the noise, away from the constant tug of the world around you. It's in solitude that you can really hear yourself think, where you can reconnect with who you are beneath all the layers of daily life. Solitude isn't about being alone, it's about finding clarity and strength within your own company. Let's be real, solitude can feel uncomfortable at first. The quiet, the stillness, the lack of distraction, it's all a bit unnerving when you're used to the constant hum of activity. But here's the thing, it's in that quiet that you begin to understand yourself better. You start to peel back the layers, uncovering thoughts and feelings that might have been buried under the surface. Solitude gives you the space to reflect, to process, and to gain a deeper understanding of what you truly need and want. When you embrace solitude, you're also learning to be okay with being with yourself. You're not looking for external validation, not seeking out distractions to fill the void. Instead, you're facing yourself head-on, getting comfortable in your own skin. This kind of self-reliance is powerful. It strengthens your sense of self and makes it easier to detach from emotional dependencies on others. Think of solitude as a form of self-care. It's like taking a moment to recharge your batteries, to center yourself. In a world that's constantly demanding your attention, solitude is your sanctuary. It's where you can breathe, think, and just be. And the more you practice it, the more you'll find that it's not something to be feared but something to be cherished. Solitude also gives you the chance to reconnect with your inner voice. In the hustle and bustle of life, it's easy to lose sight of what you truly value, what you genuinely care about. But in the quiet of solitude, that inner voice becomes louder, clearer. You start to hear your own thoughts and desires without the influence of others. This clarity helps you make decisions that are true to you, rather than being swayed by external pressures. Another thing about solitude, it's a reminder that you are enough. You don't need someone else to complete you, to make you feel whole. When you can find peace and contentment in solitude, you're telling yourself that you're okay just as you are. This kind of self-assurance is key to emotional detachment. It's knowing that your happiness, your peace of mind, doesn't depend on someone else. It comes from within. Embracing solitude isn't about isolating yourself from the world. It's about finding balance. It's about knowing when to step back, when to take time for yourself, and when to engage with others. It's a dance between connection and introspection, between external engagement and internal reflection. So, when you find yourself struggling to detach emotionally from someone, try leaning into solitude. Let it be your guide, your safe space. Use it to reflect, to reconnect with yourself, and to remember that you are whole on your own. Solitude isn't a sign of loneliness, it's a sign of strength, of knowing that you can stand on your own 2 feet. It's a practice that, when embraced, can lead to a deeper understanding of yourself and a stronger, more resilient heart. In the end, solitude isn't just about being alone, it's about being with yourself, fully and completely. It's about finding peace in your own company and strength in your own solitude. And once you embrace that, emotional detachment becomes less of a challenge and more of a natural, empowering choice. In the last section, let's discuss signs that you are dealing with an evil person. Number 1, they manipulate others for their own gain. When you're dealing with someone who manipulates others for their own gain, it's like stepping into a web they've carefully spun just to ensnare you. It's subtle at first, you might not even realize what's happening. Manipulators are skilled at weaving words and actions in a way that makes you question your own thoughts and feelings. They're the puppeteers, pulling strings behind the scenes while you dance to their tune, often without even knowing it. These individuals don't necessarily announce their intentions openly. They prefer to operate in the shadows, where their true motives can stay hidden. The hallmark of a manipulator is their ability to twist situations to their advantage, often at the expense of others. They're not above using charm, guilt, or even fear to get what they want. It's all part of the game for them, a game where the rules are constantly shifting in their favor. Now, let's dig into how they do this. First off, they're masterful at reading people. They observe your behavior, your reactions, and your emotions. Once they've got you figured out, they start pushing the right buttons. Maybe it's a compliment here, a favor there, anything to get you to lower your guard. Before you know it, you're doing things you never thought you'd do, all because they've made you feel like you owe them something, or worse, like you're the one in control. But here's the kicker: the more you give in, the more they take. A manipulator's appetite for control and power is insatiable. They're like a bottomless pit, constantly needing more from you, more attention, more favors, more obedience. And the moment you start to resist or pull away, they'll shift tactics. Maybe they'll play the victim, making you feel guilty for standing up for yourself. Or they'll turn on the charm, convincing you that you're overreacting or imagining things. It's all part of the cycle, designed to keep you in their orbit. This constant push and pull can leave you feeling confused, drained, and even doubting your own sanity. That's exactly where they want you. In their world, confusion is power. The more disoriented you are, the easier it is for them to control you. They thrive on your uncertainty, using it as a tool to further their own agenda. And make no mistake, their agenda is always self-serving. It's never about your well-being or mutual benefit, it's all about what they can get out of the situation. Over time, you might start to notice patterns. The flattery that seemed so genuine at first starts to feel hollow. The favors they ask of you become increasingly burdensome. The relationship begins to feel one-sided, with you doing all the giving and them doing all the taking. This is when the mask starts to slip, revealing the manipulator's true nature. But by then, you might already be deeply entangled in their web, making it hard to break free. And that's where the real danger lies. The longer you stay in this toxic dynamic, the more you lose sight of yourself. Your boundaries become blurred, your sense of self-worth erodes, and your ability to trust others takes a hit. The manipulator knows this, and they'll exploit it to keep you tethered to them. They'll feed off your insecurities, using them as leverage to maintain their grip on you. But remember, recognizing the signs is the first step toward breaking free. Once you see the manipulation for what it is, a calculated attempt to control and exploit, you can start to reclaim your power. It's about setting boundaries, standing firm, and refusing to play their game. The manipulator's greatest weakness is your awareness. The moment you stop responding to their tactics, they lose their hold over you. And that's when you can finally start to untangle yourself from their web, piece by piece, until you're free. So, stay vigilant. Don't let the manipulator's charm or cunning deceive you. Trust your instincts and keep your guard up. The moment you sense manipulation, it's time to step back and reassess the relationship. Because when someone's willing to manipulate others for their own gain, they're showing you who they truly are. And that's someone you're better off without. Number 2, they subtly encourage self-doubt in others. When dealing with someone who subtly encourages self-doubt in others, you might find yourself in a situation where the ground beneath you feels less stable. It's not about them overtly tearing you down, that would be too obvious, too easy to spot and push back against. No, the truly insidious nature of this behavior lies in its subtlety, its quiet, almost invisible nature. These individuals don't come at you with direct attacks. Instead, they weave a web of uncertainty, making you question your own thoughts, feelings, and even your worth. Imagine a conversation where they drop a small, seemingly innocuous comment, a little jab that doesn't immediately sting but lingers, gnaws at your confidence. Maybe it's about something you've said or done, or even a decision you've made. They might frame it as just a thought or only trying to help, but underneath those words is an intention to make you doubt yourself. It's the kind of comment that makes you replay the moment over and over, wondering if you really did mess up, if you're truly as capable as you thought you were. This tactic is about planting seeds of doubt, not an entire forest. They're smart about it. They know if they come on too strong, you'll see right through it. So, they keep it light, barely noticeable at first. But over time, these seeds grow. They take root in your mind, making you second-guess your decisions, your abilities, even your value as a person. You start to rely on them more, seeking their approval, their validation, because the constant questioning of yourself makes you feel like you need someone else to confirm your worth. What's particularly dangerous about this behavior is how it erodes your sense of self slowly, like water wearing down a rock. At first, you might not even realize it's happening. You might think you're just being reflective, cautious, or even humble. But then, you notice you're not as confident as you used to be. You're more hesitant to speak up, more likely to defer to others, even when you know deep down that you're right. It's like your inner compass starts to spin, and you can't find your true north anymore. They often disguise this behavior as concern or support. They might say things like, "Are you sure that's the best idea?" Or "I'm just worried you might be setting yourself up for disappointment." These comments seem caring on the surface, but they're really designed to make you doubt your judgment. And because they're framed as concern, it's hard to push back without seeming ungrateful or defensive. So, you let it slide, thinking they have your best interests at heart. But in reality, they're chipping away at your confidence bit by bit. As you start to internalize this doubt, you might find yourself becoming more dependent on their opinions. You start to seek their advice more often, relying on them to reassure you that you're making the right choices. This creates a power dynamic where they're in control, and you're left questioning yourself. They become the authority in your life, the one whose approval you need to feel secure. And the more you doubt yourself, the more power they gain. It's a vicious cycle, and breaking free from it can be challenging. The first step is recognizing what's happening, seeing those subtle comments for what they truly are, attempts to undermine your confidence. Once you see it, you can start to push back, to trust your own judgment again. It's about reclaiming your power, reminding yourself that you don't need someone else to validate your worth. In a Stoic sense, the key is to cultivate your inner strength, to become grounded in your own values and beliefs. When you know who you are and what you stand for, it becomes harder for others to shake you. Their attempts to sow doubt won't take root because your confidence doesn't depend on their approval. You're not easily swayed by their opinions because you trust yourself. And in the end, that's what truly protects you from their subtle, insidious tactics, your unwavering belief in yourself. Number 3, they use silence or withdrawal as a weapon to punish others. When someone uses silence or withdrawal as a weapon, it's not just about staying quiet or taking a step back. It's an intentional move designed to hurt, control, and manipulate. The silence isn't peaceful, it's loud with unspoken words and unresolved tension. It's a kind of emotional warfare, where the absence of communication becomes a tool to inflict emotional pain. Imagine you're in a situation where there's a conflict or disagreement. Instead of addressing it, the person just shuts down, leaving you in a void. This isn't the kind of silence that seeks peace or understanding. No, it's something darker. It's a silence that builds walls, creating a barrier that leaves you on the outside, confused, anxious, and maybe even doubting yourself. It's like being in a room where the air is so thick with tension that it's hard to breathe, but you're the only one gasping for air. The use of silence or withdrawal in this way is a classic move of manipulation. It's not about resolving a problem, it's about creating a power imbalance. The person who withdraws knows that you're waiting for a response, for some kind of communication that will clear the air. But they withhold it, not because they need space to think, but because they know the discomfort it causes you. They know that by pulling away, they're pulling the strings, making you dance to the tune of their silence. In the silence, you start to question yourself. What did I do wrong? Should I apologize? How can I fix this? But here's the thing, it's not about what you did or didn't do. It's about control. They want you to feel that you're the one at fault, that you're the one who needs to make amends. They thrive on your discomfort, your uncertainty, and your attempts to bridge the gap they've created. It's a twisted form of power, where they get to sit back and watch as you twist yourself into knots, trying to break through the wall of silence they've erected. This behavior isn't just a red flag, it's a siren blaring at full volume. It's a clear sign that you're dealing with someone who isn't interested in mutual respect or healthy communication. They're interested in domination, in bending you to their will through subtle, yet deeply impactful means. The silent treatment or withdrawal is their way of saying, I have the upper hand here, and I'll let you suffer until you give in. What makes this tactic particularly insidious is its subtlety. It's not like a loud argument where things are out in the open, where you know what's being fought over. This is shadowboxing, where the blows are felt, but never seen. The wounds are internal, emotional, and often long-lasting. It's hard to fight back against silence because there's nothing to push against. You're left swinging at air, trying to make sense of a situation where the rules are constantly shifting, controlled by someone who enjoys watching you flounder. From a Stoic perspective, this behavior is the opposite of virtue. It's a form of cruelty, wrapped in the guise of non-communication. Stoicism teaches us to seek peace, to resolve conflicts through reason and understanding. But when faced with someone who uses silence as a weapon, it's important to recognize that you're dealing with a person who has no interest in these principles. They're playing a different game, one where the goal is to see you break, to see you submit to their will. So, what do you do in such a situation? First, recognize it for what it is, a manipulation tactic. Understand that their silence is not a reflection of your worth or actions, but a deliberate move to control and punish. Don't give in to the game. Maintain your own sense of peace and self-worth. If they choose silence, you can choose to step away, not in defeat, but in strength. You're not obligated to fix something that's been broken by someone else's cruelty. In the end, dealing with someone who uses silence or withdrawal as a weapon is about maintaining your own inner balance. It's about refusing to be pulled into their web of manipulation and standing firm in your own truth. The silence they wield is meant to harm, but it only has power if you let it. Recognize it, refuse to play the game, and move forward with your integrity intact. Number 4, they exploit weaknesses in others. When you're around someone who exploits the weaknesses of others, it's like watching a predator circle its prey. They're not interested in helping or supporting those who are vulnerable. Instead, they're on the lookout for cracks in the armor, those moments of doubt, fear, or insecurity that everyone experiences. Once they find those weaknesses, they don't hesitate to sink their teeth in, using them as leverage to get what they want. The tricky part is, these people are often skilled at masking their true intentions. They might come across as friendly, even caring, at first. But beneath that veneer lies a cold calculation, a desire to control or gain an advantage over you. They're not interested in lifting others up, their goal is to push them down, to keep them in a position where they can be easily manipulated. One of the main tactics they use is identifying your insecurities. Maybe it's something you're self-conscious about, or a fear you've confided in them. Instead of offering genuine support, they'll subtly reinforce those insecurities, making you feel even more vulnerable. They might offer backhanded compliments or make jokes that cut a little too close to the bone. It's all part of their strategy to keep you off balance, to make sure you never feel strong enough to stand up to them. This exploitation of weaknesses isn't just about words, either. They'll observe how you react to certain situations and use that knowledge to their advantage. If they notice you're hesitant to say no, They'll push your boundaries, asking for more and more until you're stretched thin. If they see that you're eager to please, they'll exploit that too, making you feel like you have to earn their approval by doing things that go against your better judgment. Over time, this kind of behavior can wear you down. It can make you doubt your own worth, your own abilities. And that's exactly what they want. By keeping you in a state of self-doubt, they can maintain their control over you. They know that as long as you feel weak, you'll be less likely to challenge them, less likely to see through their manipulations. What makes this even more insidious is that they often target those who are already vulnerable. They look for people who are going through tough times, who are dealing with stress, loss, or uncertainty. These are the moments when you might be more susceptible to their influence, more likely to overlook the red flags. And once they've got you in their sights, they won't let go easily. But there's a way out of this. The key is to recognize the patterns, to see their behavior for what it is, a deliberate attempt to exploit your weaknesses. It's about reclaiming your power, recognizing your worth, and setting boundaries that they can't cross. You have to remind yourself that their opinion of you doesn't define you, and that their tactics only have power if you allow them to. Strengthening your own sense of self-worth is crucial here. The more confident you are in yourself, the less their attempts to exploit you will affect you. When you know your strengths and acknowledge your weaknesses without judgment, you become much harder to manipulate. It's not about being perfect or invulnerable, it's about being aware and resilient, about refusing to let someone else's agenda dictate how you see yourself. It's also important to surround yourself with people who genuinely support and uplift you. The more positive, healthy relationships you have, the less room there is for someone who seeks to exploit your weaknesses. These good relationships act as a buffer, helping you stay grounded and reminding you of your worth when someone tries to bring you down. In the end, someone who exploits weaknesses in others is showing you who they really are. They're revealing a fundamental lack of empathy and integrity, traits that are the opposite of what Stoicism teaches us to value. When you recognize these signs, it's a clear signal to distance yourself, to protect your well-being, and to focus on relationships that are built on mutual respect and kindness. Because life is too short to spend it tangled up with people who only see you as a means to an end. Number 5. They hold grudges and seek covert revenge. When someone harbors grudges and quietly plots revenge, it's like dealing with a ticking time bomb. It's not the dramatic, in-your-face kind of hostility, but something much more insidious. The kind of person who holds grudges and seeks covert revenge doesn't come at you with open aggression. Instead, they bide their time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike when you least expect it. This is the person who, outwardly, might seem calm, even friendly, but underneath, they're simmering with resentment. You see, grudges have a way of festering. They're not just fleeting annoyances that pass with time, they dig in, take root, and grow. The person who holds onto them isn't interested in resolution or moving forward. No, they're interested in payback. And the worst part? They don't want you to see it coming. They play the long game, waiting for the right opportunity to get even, often in ways that are subtle and hard to trace back to them. Their revenge isn't about grand gestures or dramatic confrontations. That would be too obvious, too easy to spot. No, they prefer to operate in the shadows, to exact their revenge in ways that might seem insignificant at first but build up over time. Maybe it's a snide remark, a backhanded compliment, or a small act of sabotage. Each action might seem trivial on its own, but together, they add up to something much more damaging. What makes this kind of behavior particularly harmful is that it's often difficult to pinpoint. You might feel like something is off, but you can't quite put your finger on it. That's because this person is careful, calculated. They know how to cover their tracks, to make it seem like they're not doing anything wrong. They might even convince you that you're overreacting, that the problem is with you, not them. This covert approach allows them to maintain a facade of normalcy. They might still smile at you, engage in small talk, and even offer to help you out with something. But all the while, they're holding onto that grudge, nurturing it like a poisonous plant. They water it with their resentment, prune it with their need for control, and wait for it to bear fruit in the form of your downfall. Now, why do they do this? It's not just about getting even, it's about power. Holding onto a grudge and seeking revenge gives them a sense of control. They're not just reacting to a perceived wrong, they're actively shaping the narrative, bending it to their will. In their mind, they're righting a wrong, restoring balance. But in reality, they're creating more harm, perpetuating a cycle of negativity that only breeds more resentment and hostility. From a Stoic perspective, this behavior is the antithesis of wisdom. Stoicism teaches us to let go of our attachments to external events, to focus on what we can control, our own thoughts, actions, and reactions. But the person who holds grudges is doing the opposite. They're fixating on the past, on something that's already happened and can't be changed. They're allowing that past event to dictate their present and future actions, which is a recipe for misery. In the end, the person who holds grudges and seeks covert revenge isn't just harming others, they're harming themselves. They're trapping themselves in a prison of their own making, locked in a cycle of bitterness and retribution that can never bring true satisfaction or peace. It's a hollow victory they're seeking, one that will never fill the void they're trying to address. So, when you encounter someone who behaves this way, it's important to recognize what's really going on. This isn't just a matter of someone being petty or spiteful, it's a sign of deeper issues, of a person who is consumed by their own need for control and vindication. Understanding this can help you navigate these relationships more wisely, protecting yourself from their toxic influence while maintaining your own sense of peace and balance. Number 6, they fake kindness to mask their true intentions. When someone fakes kindness to mask their true intentions, it's like putting a shiny veneer over something rotten underneath. On the surface, everything seems fine, even pleasant, warm smiles, thoughtful gestures, sweet words that seem to come from a place of genuine care. But lurking just beneath that polished exterior is something far more sinister. The kindness isn't real, it's a tool, a facade carefully constructed to manipulate, deceive, and eventually take advantage. You've probably come across people who are just too nice. Their compliments feel a little too smooth, their helpfulness a tad too eager, their concern just a bit too much. It's almost as if they're acting from a script, saying and doing exactly what you want to hear, what you expect from a kind person. But if you pay close attention, you might notice that something feels off. Their words and actions don't align with a genuine sense of empathy or compassion. Instead, they're calculated, measured, and aimed at securing your trust. This is the hallmark of someone who fakes kindness. They're not being nice because they care about you, they're being nice because they care about what they can get from you. It's a strategic move, a way to disarm you, lower your defenses, and make you more susceptible to their real agenda. And often, by the time you realize what's happening, they've already gotten what they wanted. This kind of behavior is not just deceptive, it's deeply malicious. By pretending to be kind, they exploit your natural tendency to trust, to believe the best in others. They know that kindness is a powerful currency, one that can buy them access to your life, your resources, your emotions. They use it to open doors that would otherwise be closed, to gain favors they haven't earned, and to manipulate you into doing things that serve their own selfish purposes. But here's the kicker, they're good at it. Their fake kindness is often so convincing that it can be hard to spot, especially at first. They know how to say the right things, how to perform acts of generosity that seem so genuine, you'd never suspect there's anything behind them. It's only later, after the damage has been done, that the pieces start to fall into place. The favors that were asked in return, the subtle manipulations that led you down a path you wouldn't have chosen on your own, it all starts to make sense, but by then, it's often too late. This kind of person operates with a level of cunning that can be truly frightening. They know how to play on your emotions, how to make you feel special, valued, and cared for, all while hiding their true intentions. It's a game to them, one they're usually very good at. They've perfected the art of faking kindness, using it as a mask to cover their real face, the one that's cold, calculating, and entirely self-serving. From a Stoic perspective, this behavior is the antithesis of virtue. Stoicism teaches that true kindness comes from a place of genuine concern for others, a desire to help and support without expecting anything in return. It's about acting in accordance with nature, living in harmony with others, and being honest and authentic in your interactions. But when someone fakes kindness, they're doing the opposite. They're using the appearance of virtue to cloak their vices, to manipulate and control rather than to support and uplift. So, how do you protect yourself from this kind of deception? First, be aware that not all kindness is genuine. Just because someone is nice to you doesn't mean they have your best interests at heart. Pay attention to patterns of behavior, to the little signs that might indicate something isn't quite right. Are they always asking for something in return? Do their actions seem to benefit them more than they benefit you? Do you feel uneasy around them, even if you can't quite put your finger on why? Trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. True kindness doesn't come with strings attached, and it doesn't make you feel like you owe something in return. It's freely given, with no ulterior motives, and it leaves you feeling uplifted, not drained or manipulated. In the end, dealing with someone who fakes kindness is about staying vigilant and trusting yourself. It's about recognizing that not everyone who smiles at you is your friend, and that sometimes, the most dangerous people are the ones who hide behind a mask of kindness. Don't be fooled by the facade. Look deeper, see the truth, and protect yourself from those who would use kindness as a weapon. Number 7, they undermine others' achievements through sarcasm. When someone constantly undermines others' achievements through sarcasm, it's like they're trying to cast a shadow over the light of someone else's success. It's subtle, often disguised as humor or a joke, but the intention behind it is anything but playful. The goal is to diminish, to take something bright and beautiful and dim it down, all because they can't stand the idea of someone else shining too brightly. Sarcasm, in this context, becomes a tool for the insecure. Instead of celebrating someone's accomplishments, they wrap their envy in a snide remark or a backhanded compliment. It's like they're trying to say, "Yeah, you did that, but it's not really that impressive." They might throw in a casual, "Oh, look at you, Mr. Big Shot," or "Well, aren't you special," all with a smirk that suggests they're not really impressed, even if the achievement is something genuinely noteworthy. This kind of behavior is draining. It takes what should be a moment of pride and turns it into something awkward, something tainted by the sharp edge of their words. You find yourself questioning whether your achievement was worth celebrating in the first place, all because they've planted that seed of doubt with their sarcastic quip. It's like they're trying to take ownership of your joy, twisting it into something less pure, less joyful. But why do they do it? Often, it's because they're uncomfortable with their own perceived shortcomings. Seeing someone else succeed highlights their own insecurities, their own lack of progress, and instead of dealing with those feelings, they project them outward. Sarcasm becomes a shield, a way to protect their ego by knocking others down a peg or two. It's not about you, it's about them, but they make it feel like it's all about you. Another layer to this is how it affects relationships. Sarcasm, when used in this way, erodes trust and respect. It creates an environment where people feel they have to walk on eggshells, never fully sure if their success will be met with genuine praise or a biting remark. Over time, it can push people away, leading to isolation for both the person on the receiving end and the one dishing it out. It's a toxic cycle, fueled by bitterness and the inability to celebrate others without feeling threatened. The real danger of this sarcastic undermining is that it can start to chip away at your self-esteem. If you hear something often enough, you might start to believe it. Their sarcastic comments can make you second-guess your achievements, leading you to downplay your own hard work and successes. This is exactly what they want, to pull you down to their level of insecurity and doubt, because misery, as they say, loves company. But here's the thing, sarcasm only has power if you let it. Recognizing it for what it is, a defense mechanism rooted in insecurity, can help you build a shield against it. Instead of letting their words get under your skin, you can choose to rise above it. You don't need their validation to know that your achievements matter. You don't need their approval to feel proud of what you've accomplished. Their sarcasm is a reflection of them, not you. One way to counter this is by staying grounded in your own sense of worth. Celebrate your achievements with people who genuinely care about your success, who lift you up instead of trying to tear you down. And when faced with sarcasm, you can either call it out or simply let it slide off your back, knowing that it doesn't define your worth or the value of what you've done. At the end of the day, those who undermine others through sarcasm are showing you their true colors. They're revealing their own struggles with envy, insecurity, and a lack of self-confidence. But that doesn't mean you have to let their negativity affect you. By staying true to yourself and not letting their words diminish your achievements, you maintain your integrity and your sense of accomplishment. So, when someone tries to undermine you with sarcasm, remember, it's not about you. It's about them. And you have the power to choose how much influence their words have over your life. Hold on to your light, and let it shine, no matter how much they try to dim it. Number 8. They are relentlessly selfish and self-centered. When you're dealing with someone who's relentlessly selfish and self-centered, it's like being in a one-sided relationship where the other person always comes first, no matter what. They're the star of their own show, and everyone else? Just supporting characters, they're to serve their needs, wants, and desires. It's not that they occasionally put themselves first, which everyone does from time to time. No, this is a whole different level. This is a person who's so wrapped up in themselves that they can't see beyond their own nose. The thing is, with someone like this, every interaction feels like it's all about them. It's as if they've got blinders on, only focusing on how things affect them, how they can benefit, how they can come out on top. You might find that conversations always somehow circle back to them, no matter where they started. Try to talk about something that's important to you, and before you know it, they've flipped it around, making it about their experiences, their opinions, their problems. It's exhausting, right? And let's not forget how this relentless self-centeredness shows up in their actions. They're the kind of person who will take the biggest slice of the pie without a second thought, who'll happily let you carry the burden while they reap the rewards. If there's a shortcut that benefits them, they'll take it even if it leaves you in the dust. They're not just prioritizing their needs, they're ignoring everyone else's, as if other people's needs don't even exist. In their world, it's all about what they can get, what they can take. They're not interested in giving, not unless there's something in it for them. And when they do give, it's often with strings attached, expecting something in return. They're not offering help out of kindness, they're making an investment, expecting to cash in later. This isn't generosity, it's calculated selfishness. What's more, this relentless focus on themselves means they often lack empathy. It's not that they don't understand what others are going through, it's that they don't care. Your feelings, your struggles, they're just not on their radar unless they can use them to their advantage. And even then, it's about how your situation affects them, not about genuine concern for you. This kind of person might even get angry or frustrated when others don't fall in line with their expectations. They see themselves as the center of the universe, so when people don't act accordingly, it feels like a personal affront. They might lash out, make demands, or manipulate situations to get what they want, all the while thinking it's perfectly reasonable because, in their mind, they deserve it. In the Stoic sense, dealing with someone like this can be a real challenge. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control, our own actions, our own responses. But when faced with someone who's so self-absorbed, it can be hard not to get dragged into their drama, not to feel frustrated or taken advantage of. The key is to recognize what's happening and not let their selfishness dictate your actions or emotions. You don't have to play by their rules. You don't have to feed their ego or cater to their demands. Stoicism encourages us to maintain our own integrity, to act according to our own values, regardless of how others behave. When dealing with someone who's relentlessly selfish, that might mean setting boundaries, saying no when necessary, and not getting sucked into their self-centered world. Ultimately, the relentless selfishness of such a person is a reflection of their own inner emptiness. They're constantly seeking to fill a void, but no amount of attention, no amount of talking or demanding, will ever be enough. They're stuck in a cycle of endless wanting, always hungry for more, never satisfied. And that's not your burden to bear. By recognizing their behavior for what it is, you can protect yourself from getting caught in their web and stay grounded in your own sense of self. Number 9. They break promises and betray trust. When someone repeatedly breaks promises and betrays trust, it's like they're chiseling away at the very foundation of what makes a relationship, any relationship, work. Trust isn't something that just magically appears. It's built over time, piece by piece, through actions, words, and mutual understanding. But when someone consistently fails to keep their word, that trust, which took so long to build, can crumble in an instant. Let's be real here, promises aren't just words. They're commitments, little contracts that say, "You can count on me." And when someone breaks those promises, they're essentially telling you, without saying a word, that your trust isn't worth much to them. Maybe they apologize afterward, maybe they don't, but the damage is done. A broken promise leaves a mark, a little scar that reminds you not to trust so easily next time. But it's not just about the promises themselves, it's about what they represent. When someone betrays your trust, they're showing you a glimpse of their true character. They're revealing that their words don't hold much weight, that they're more than willing to let you down when it suits them. And that, my friend, is a huge red flag. Because if someone is willing to betray your trust over small things, what's stopping them from doing the same, or worse, when the stakes are higher? Breaking promises and betraying trust isn't just about failing to show up when you said you would or not following through on a commitment. It's about creating a pattern of behavior that undermines the very fabric of a healthy relationship. Each broken promise, each little betrayal, chips away at the respect and loyalty that's supposed to hold people together. It's like they're playing a game where only they know the rules, and you're left scrambling, trying to figure out what happened to the trust you thought you had. And here's the thing, people who make a habit of breaking promises usually don't see anything wrong with it. They might offer excuses, say they were too busy, or that something came up, but the underlying message is clear, your trust isn't a priority for them. They may even act surprised when you're hurt or upset, turning the situation around to make you feel like you're the one overreacting. But you're not overreacting. Trust is a big deal. Without it, any relationship, whether it's a friendship, partnership, or something else entirely, starts to wither. From a Stoic perspective, trust is a virtue. It's something to be honored, cherished, and maintained with care. When someone betrays that trust, they're not just letting you down, they're acting against the principles of integrity and respect that are central to living a virtuous life. Stoicism teaches us to value honesty, to be true to our word, and to act in ways that are consistent with our principles. But when someone repeatedly breaks promises, they're showing you that they don't share those values. They're more interested in serving their own needs, even if it means hurting others in the process. So, what do you do when you're faced with someone who constantly breaks promises and betrays your trust? First, recognize that this isn't just about one or two slip-ups. It's about a pattern of behavior that shows a fundamental lack of respect for you and your relationship. You deserve better than that. You deserve people in your life who value your trust, who see it as something precious, not something to be casually tossed aside when it's no longer convenient. It's also important to set boundaries. If someone continues to break promises, it's okay to distance yourself. You don't have to keep giving them chances to prove that they're unreliable. Protect your own peace of mind and surround yourself with people who are trustworthy, who keep their word, and who understand the value of a promise. At the end of the day, trust is fragile. It can take years to build and seconds to destroy. When someone breaks promises and betrays trust, they're not just damaging the relationship, they're revealing their true nature. Don't ignore the signs. Pay attention, protect your heart, and remember that you deserve to have people in your life who respect and honor your trust. Because once that trust is gone, it's incredibly hard to get back. Number 10. They refuse to take responsibility for their actions. When someone refuses to take responsibility for their actions, it's like dealing with a slippery fish. You think you've got a grip on the situation, but they manage to wriggle free every time. They're the masters of deflection, always finding a way to sidestep the consequences of their behavior, leaving you holding the bag. It's frustrating, to say the least, and it can make you question what's real and what's just a smokescreen. Here's the thing, people who refuse to own up to their actions are often deeply insecure. Admitting they're wrong or acknowledging they've made a mistake feels like a threat to their ego, so they avoid it at all costs. Instead of saying, "Yeah, that was on me," they'll twist the narrative, making it seem like it's everyone else's fault but theirs. They'll point fingers, shift blame, and maybe even play the victim, anything to keep the spotlight off their own shortcomings. You might notice this pattern in how they respond to conflict or criticism. Rather than taking a step back to reflect on their behavior, they go on the offensive. "It wasn't me," they'll insist, "it was because of this or that." They'll drag other people into the mix, muddying the waters until you're left wondering if maybe, just maybe, they're right. But deep down, you know the truth, they're dodging responsibility, plain and simple. This kind of behavior is toxic, not just for them but for everyone around them. It creates an environment where accountability is non-existent, and without accountability, there's no room for growth or improvement. They stay stuck in their ways, refusing to learn from their mistakes because, in their mind, they haven't made any. It's always someone else's problem, someone else's fault. What's worse, their refusal to take responsibility often leaves others to clean up their messes. You might find yourself apologizing on their behalf, fixing the problems they've caused, or taking on burdens that aren't yours to bear. It's exhausting, and it can wear you down over time. It's like running a never-ending race where the finish line keeps moving because they keep pushing it further away. This behavior also erodes trust. How can you rely on someone who never admits when they're wrong? How can you build a healthy, honest relationship with someone who's constantly dodging accountability? The answer is, you can't. Trust requires a foundation of truth, and if someone refuses to own their actions, that foundation crumbles. But here's the kicker, when they're called out on it, they'll often double down. They'll become defensive, maybe even aggressive, trying to turn the tables and make you feel like you're the one in the wrong. It's a manipulative tactic, designed to keep you off balance and second-guessing yourself. Don't fall for it. Recognizing this pattern is the first step in breaking free from its grip. So, what do you do when you're dealing with someone like this? First off, set boundaries. Make it clear that you won't take on their responsibilities or clean up their messes. If they've made a mistake, they need to face the consequences, not you. It's about drawing a line in the sand and sticking to it, no matter how much they try to blur it. Next, don't engage in their blame game. If they try to shift the responsibility onto you or someone else, calmly but firmly bring the focus back to their actions. You don't need to argue or get drawn into their drama, just stick to the facts. The more you do this, the less power they'll have to deflect and dodge. Lastly, protect your peace of mind. Dealing with someone who refuses to take responsibility can be draining, so it's important to prioritize your own well-being. Surround yourself with people who are honest, accountable, and willing to own their mistakes. Those are the relationships that will nourish you, not drain you. In the end, someone who refuses to take responsibility for their actions is showing you a fundamental flaw in their character. It's a red flag, a warning sign that you're dealing with someone who's not interested in growth or integrity. But recognizing this behavior for what it is gives you the power to protect yourself, to set boundaries, and to focus on building relationships that are rooted in mutual respect and accountability. Because life's too short to waste it on people who can't own up to their own messes. As we wrap up this exploration of the 10 signs that may indicate you're dealing with an evil person, it's crucial to remember that Stoicism teaches us to approach every situation with wisdom, discernment, and compassion. While it's important to recognize and protect yourself from harmful influences, it's equally vital to remain grounded in your own values and not let negativity pull you away from your path of virtue. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Real Stoic Journal for more content that helps you navigate life's challenges with stoic resilience. And remember, no matter what you face, you have the inner strength to overcome it. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay strong, stay wise, and keep practicing the art of living with purpose. Congratulations! You've just unlocked 55 powerful Stoic rules that can transform your life. But remember, it's not enough to just listen, take action. Start applying these principles today, and watch how your mindset, resilience, and life begin to change. If you found value in this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Stoic wisdom. Keep striving for progress, stay grounded, and remember, the journey to self-mastery never ends. Until next time, stay stoic.